everybody. Hello, hi, hello. It's a me, a Mario, and Luigi. Yes, I've got Packer Jack with me. All right.
Woo!
Woo! We do the Rip Flair. Hello, everybody. Hello, Oracle. Hello, checking in from Ohio, Jacob White. Jumper 377. That's got to be Mark Meltzer.
Yeah.
Hi, Mark. All right, Nicole's in the chat. Hello to Poirot and Cornwall. I hope you're doing well. Hello from war-ravaged Portland. I know. Well, hopefully the war's over by the time we get there. In another lifetime. So, okay. CD Booper. Hello. All right. So basically, we'll let some people get in here, but basically we were going to talk about CooperCon, the DB Cooper conference. That's right. We want all of you to attend. Anybody who's interested in the Cooper stuff, this is really your chance to interact with some very notable Vortexians. Larry Carr will be there. You can give him a piece of your mind. Larry's very nice. And Bruce Smith, the mayor of Cooperville, will be there. Obviously, I'll be there, and Packer will be there, and lots of people will be there. Pat Boland will be there. Who else?
Dr. Karen Humes.
Dr. Karen. Tom K. Yes.
Tom K.
Brian Ingram.
Got a yes from Brian Ingram.
Yeah. So
Bill Mitchell, of course.
Bill Mitchell. Yes.
And
Bill
then kind of the really unique for this year, on top of the fact that Mac came 2 years ago, is Eli Kouros and his team from American Skyjacker with stewardess Sharon Mattiau coming along. And we're going to have a red carpet kind of premiere on Saturday night of American Skyjacker before it goes to live stream on Amazon and other platforms. So that's just the serendipity of us going back to Vancouver to the Kiggins, and the fact that being a theater and the timing with it just is perfect. So I'm really excited about that. On top of the fact that we've got a packed schedule, obviously with things to be determined. We always have to plan if people can't make it at the last minute or things like that. But there's a lot of exciting sessions that are going to be new this year. And of course, Ryan, you and I are set up to be sworn enemies now because you're a Cubs fan. I'm a Brewers fan. They're going head to head right now.
I know.
And you're going to be presenting a new suspect who there's going to be no spoiler alerts on him tonight, that we're saving that for the conference. But Ryan was gracious enough because of our relationship to share photos and things like me. And I'm telling you guys, as much as I'm going to be there to present on Skip Hall, and am still all in on Skip right now. I'm really excited for Ryan to present this new suspect. I think it's going to shake things up even more. And it's certainly more than worthy of the attention that Ryan and some others in the community who are helping Ryan with have put together. And the way that Ryan's handled working with this man's family, they may be there as well too. Right now, they've got some personal stuff going on, but that's exciting. So just a whole lot of stuff going on. And if I look back at my list, Ryan, just so we don't leave anybody out, obviously our Vortex Events LLC CPA of record, Drew Daniel, is scheduled to be there.
Oh, yes, of course.
Tammy and Ron Foreman, of course, coming back, hopefully bringing Barb Dayton with them again.
Yes.
We talked about Dr. Humes. Nicole Legg is set to take the stage with us. And, of course, her husband, Brad, will be there. We're looking forward to having them there. And Ron Ravansek. I mean, Ron, we met him last year and find out that he's a hydrology expert. He did a wonderful Cooper Vortex with Darren. And we're like, we got to do something on hydrology and the Tina Bar money. And interestingly enough, when I went to call Karen about, what she wanted to do, because her team did just this fantastic interactive presentation on the drop zone last year. And we thought just having Karen back, even if we talked more about the drop zone, would be great. But I went to Karen's university website and was looking to get her email and everything. And it says she's got a degree in hydrology and soil. And Ryan and I are like, you got to be kidding me. So you figure we've got Ron, Karen, obviously Tom K, and Brian Ingram coming. We're going to have the best, greatest Tina Bar money panel of all time.
A person with an advanced degree in hydrology and soil science. Like, you are the perfect Tina Bar person for this. It's like, right. Wow, we had no idea Karen was so, I guess, multi-talented as far as her science, well-versed, yes. And pretty wild. And by the way, folks, tonight, if you want to ask any questions about Skip Hall, maybe he'll be able to answer. So any Skip Hall questions, direct it to Packer, and he can answer if he's able. But he's going to present a lot of new stuff. I've seen a lot of his new stuff. It's wonderful. And he's going to be presenting a lot of new stuff about Skip Hall as well. That'll be Saturday. I think we'll do a bunch of suspect stuff Saturday. I think.
Yeah. So just real quick, just a truncated schedule. So the first day is going to be science, evidence, and witnesses. Obviously, having Bill Mitchell come back and having Brian Ingram there, you're talking about two of the most notable key witnesses. The man who sat 5 feet across from D.B. Cooper in the same aisle on the hijacked aircraft, and then the little boy at the time who found the $6,000 in the sand at Tina Bar. And that's the witness part of it. Obviously, the science part is going to be the hydrology, the soil, talking about that. And Tom Kay, as he loves to do at the end of the day on the first day, is to present the newest test results from Macron Labs. And we got new results back this year. And I know Nikki and Chris and Drew and others, Eric, have been working on that. And Tom's going to have the latest update on what those tests on the new equipment at Macron, everything that has shown to date. So that's going to be new to me. Some of it, I know Ryan, we I had an exchange with Tom a couple of weeks ago because I sent him some stuff, but a lot of it's going to be new to me. So I'm excited just as a Cooperite to hear that as well too. So that's the first day. And then because we're going to be showing the movie on Saturday night at the theater, we don't want to get too far away from the theater. So we're going to do the happy hour at Victor 23 on the first night, which is Friday night. And sounds like we have a benefactor sponsor that is going to at least get one round of drinks as far as we know, and we'll work on that. Another new thing about the first day is that anybody who's purchasing the weekend pass, and we intentionally reduced that price by $20 from last year, is going to get a customized DB Cooper Conference 2025 lanyard. And Rob Bertrand and the wonderful people at Northwest Escape Experience, they have a wonderful DB Cooper escape room. They're sponsoring that lanyard. I posted pictures of it on the Facebook groups, and that's just a really neat souvenir, let alone something that you're going to be able to wear. And I've seen a prototype for a name tag that Ryan's working up for everybody to have as well, too, which may make you look like you're ready to board Flight 305, but I'll leave that at there. So obviously, thanks to Ron. So that's day one. Day two, we're going to move into the FBI parachutes in the morning. So Larry Carr, as Ryan said, is going to be there. Bruce Smith is going to be there. Mark Meltzer is going to be there. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of new people at the conference this year, both from Vancouver, people subscribing to Ryan's show, other people that have joined the community. And a lot of people don't know the truth of the story behind the McCoy parachute that came up this year. So we want to make sure we touch on that as well, too. I know that'll be not new news for a lot of Cooperites, but you can imagine some first-time attendees who may have heard that, somebody proved who D.B. Cooper was this year. We want to make sure that we get the factual evidence out about that. So really delving into FBI, the new case releases, talking with Bruce, talking with Larry, talking with Mark and others that will be part of that will be in the morning. And then we're going to shift to suspect afternoon panel. As I mentioned, there's going to be people that have written about other suspects and are championing other suspects that are going to be there. So we want to have a Q&A about that before Ryan and I present. And we wanted to do that Q&A for two reasons. One, we didn't, just because Ryan and I own the conference doesn't mean that we feel like it's going to be the Skip Hall new guy show. We want it to be about, all the great suspects in the case and all that information. So certainly we're going to have our presentations after that panel. And then we're going to shift into prep for the movie. And that will be, we've got, Mac being there 2 years ago as a copycat is a huge thing to have him come back and that this documentary movie was made. But having Sharon there, a flight attendant from a hijacked aircraft within a year of the Cooper hijacking, everybody's talked about how great it would be to have a flight attendant there. And so we're going to make sure that we get some time just talking to Sharon. I mean,
it's as close as we can get to having Tina Mucklow, essentially. I mean, she served the role of Tina Mucklow for Mac on a similar hijacked plane. And I think for longer, actually. I think she was actually a hostage longer than Tina was, I believe. So, and yeah, her and Mac are friends now, which is just delightful, right? That, I mean, here they are, there they are there.
Yeah.
They're just, what a wild idea, concept to think about, that in some bizarro universe, there could be a thing where Tina Mucklow and whoever Dan Cooper was came together like that. It's just interesting, right? Because if Mac had not been caught, then Sharon would be a Tina Mucklow type figure, right? Because she spent the most time with this guy, and we would treat her like Tina Mucklow with tell us about all this other stuff. So we get a chance to interview her and talk to her, and she'll be there. And like I said, folks, I mean, come meet Martin McNally. Come meet McNally, a true character, a relic of what we're interested in. It's kind of a weird thing that we're interested in this hijacking stuff. So it's almost like if you were at a Civil War conference and there's a Civil War veteran there, right? It's like you might be in Gettysburg or something, and yeah, this guy might not have fought in Gettysburg, but he fought at Chancellorsville or something. It doesn't matter. He was still in the Civil War. Well, this is still a hijacker who did this, who jumped out of a jet. I mean, he is as close as we can get to DB Cooper right now. And in fact, I've often said that of all the copycats, I actually think that Mac's copycat hijacking is closest to Cooper in a lot of ways because of his behavior. He did not get rustled. He got mad a few times, but and that sounds like Tina. He was impatient a few times. Mac did get impatient a few times, but he was a chilled out guy. And the other hijackers, I can't say that for. They were not so chilled out. So come meet Mac, and then Sunday I think we were just going to do a post game.
Yeah, we're going to start the morning on Sunday at 10 o'clock, so people can still sleep in a little bit. But start right up at 10 o'clock then with a Q&A with Eli and his team.
That's the director of American
Grace
Skyjacker.
Strawn will be there, who's done all the marketing and promo for it. With Sharon and Mac, and we can just get feedback on what people thought about the movie, ask questions about the movie, how it was made. Eli, and when we had a meeting with him, said there's a potential for him. They did a lot of research on the Cooper case when they were putting the American Skyjacker together, and they actually have a lot of film that got cut out of the documentary because they had to fit the documentary into one feature-length piece, and some of it is Cooper related. And so Ryan and I, as geeks, were like, well, we'd love to see that. So there's a potential for them to put together a short reel that not even people who are going to see American Skyjacker are going to see, and we're going to see some of the reels that they put together that got cut out of the movie that deal specifically with the Cooper case.
Yeah. That'll be wonderful stuff to see. And somebody was asking about a minimum age or a age limit to, or whatever. Somebody said that they were wondering if there's a age to enter if you're under 18, and I don't think so. I mean, as long as your parent says it's okay, then it's a. I mean, there's no age limit at CooperCon, so we have younger attendees at CooperCon, plenty. Right. Of younger.
I mean, the movie is going to have violence in it. I mean,
sure. The movie.
There's robberies and the hijacking and probably obviously foul language, but
as far as CooperCon itself, it's
right.
There's no age.
Well,
yeah.
There's sometimes that at the after parties too, but no, I'm kidding.
Yeah. So,
and Max, yes, the movie is going to be November 15th. Dan and Richard at the theater were working to get the tickets up. So if you buy the weekend pass for $75, we knew that some people that are coming to the conference may not want to go to the movie Saturday night. I don't know why, but could be a lot of reasons why they can't, or they don't want to, or, they're just going to be tired and want to go do something else different. And the movie is going to be $15. So that will be purchased separately. And Ryan and I wanted to do that so that there wasn't any markup to us for the conference. Dan's working directly with Eli and his team and the Motion Picture Association of America to show a movie in a theater with tickets being purchased. And if you think about it, the $15 plus the $75 weekend pass is still $5 less than the conference was last year. So
Yeah,
it's
so
still a
it's
great deal, and again, affords those that don't want to go. So the passes are for sale on the Kiggins website. The November 15th movie ticket, as of this morning, wasn't up, but Dan promised to get that up this week. There is a showing of October 23rd that we're doing a promo to help promote the conference as well too locally, because the release of American Skyjacker is going to start in October at a limited number of theaters throughout the country before it goes to Amazon and other streaming platforms in December is when it's scheduled for streaming release. So we are considering it a premiere red carpet event on November 15th. And those tickets will be available for purchase separately on the Kiggins website. Stay tuned. We'll announce on Facebook, and Ryan will let you guys know here on his show when you can actually start buying those tickets on the Kiggins website. The theater seats around 300, so we don't think there's going to be any issue with people coming to the conference getting a ticket for the movie. Dan is working it, so we know that at least 100 of those tickets are reserved for the weekend pass people to buy. So we're going to keep a throttle on making sure that, all of a sudden we don't have 5 school classes from Vancouver buying up all the movie tickets, and then people that are coming for the conference can't go to it.
Yeah, exactly. And let's see, a couple questions. Somebody saying, what time does programming start on Friday? What time do we start on Friday? 9 or 10 or what was it?
It's 10 o'clock every morning.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah.
10 o'clock. And some questions about like McNally. Join Jen says it sounds like McNally was already slightly brain damaged, so the high-speed jump wasn't a bigger deal. I don't know if Mac was brain damaged. Mac does have a interesting thing about fear. He is quite convinced, and his family is convinced, that he was born without, and I've actually spoken to a neuroscientist about this, and this is actually a thing, that Mac was born without a fear gene or something. Like he does not understand what fear is. He doesn't understand what being afraid is. His whole life when he was growing up, would climb the roof, do very, very, very dangerous things, and have no concept of any fear of consequence or anything like that. And Mac will tell you straight up. He was like, when you say, were you afraid? He's like, no, because it just doesn't process with him. It's interesting. So I guess that might be some brain damage in that way. But somebody said, why were the pilots flying so fast? And yes, Mark Meltzer can probably attest. I imagine that Mac probably set a record when he jumped out of that plane. That was probably a civilian record for speed.
Like 300 miles an hour, yeah.
Over 300. I think 330 was what the pilots were saying. Yeah. And somebody was asking, were the pilots trying to kill him? Yes, actually. They admitted that in the newspapers. The next day they said, well, we pumped it up to 350 or whatever it was. We were trying to kill him. And the FBI thought that they did kill him because, remember, they found his pants and his clothes down on the ground. They said, oh, his pants blew off. He exited so fast. But, of course, Mac really just threw his pants. He was wearing clothes. He was wearing blue jeans under his suit and just threw his suit out the back. And that's what they found. But, yeah, so Mac exited very fast. Mac is the Ronald Spears of hijackers. I get that reference. That's a nice Band of Brothers reference there. Nice. Yes, the only thing yes, what's the line in Band of Brothers that Spears says, you have to operate without fear. That's the only way a soldier can do anything, is to operate without fear. Yeah, Mark is saying that he jumped out of a firewalled C-130, and it was a hell of a jump. And so, yeah, Mac was pretty crazy. Is the new suspect French-Canadian? No. New suspect is not French-Canadian. No French connections there, but plenty of other stuff. So we'll open it up for questions now. We're just going to chit-chat. One thing I did want to discuss, just one thing I found interesting in the recent vault, not the most recent one, but so Charlie Farrell, as some of you hear me talk about a lot, was the first lead case agent. So there were actually 3 case agents starting out. That'd be Don Steele, Charlie Farrell, and our friend John Detler, who was there last year. And those 3 were the first case agents, with the lead case agent being Charlie Farrell. Now, Charlie Farrell undertook this great responsibility at some point in like 72 or 73, where he wrote a 300-page report about the Cooper hijacking. And it's got some really cool stuff in there. And it was, in its entirety, was released in the last vault drop. And one of the things that's interesting is that it gave each passenger, or it gave each eyewitness's description of Cooper. But there were some things in there that were not in the eyewitness descriptions that are in the famous 302s that you can go on my website, norjack.org, and look up what they say. And especially with Bill. And I'll pull up the things that were different with Bill. A lot of things that I highlighted the things that were not in Bill's 302. And we can see that he actually gave an age. Bill's 302, if you look it up on my website, does not have Cooper's age. But Bill gave an age, apparently gave an age of 40. And one thing that's interesting is we have Bill mentioning here, sideburns to below his ears, which is not in his original statement. And also this concept of Cooper having a wave in his hair in the front, just over his forehead. That's something new to us. And honestly, though, if you were to look at Bing and look at KK51, you see a bit of a pop, a little wave there. So that, I think that Flo must have seen that too. If Flo picked out KK51, his hairline, right, has a little pop in it. So I do think Cooper might have had a little pop in his hair right there. That's neat there with that. And let's see, what else did Bill say? Yeah, look at that, complexion fair. So Bill Mitchell, sitting 5 feet from Cooper, is the only eyewitness, literally the only one, who gave who did not say he had olive, swarthy, or a medium to dark complexion. He goes fair, which is really interesting for Bill to say that. Or really interesting to see that. And also we have Alice, and Alice is in Alice Hancock's original 302. She says that Cooper was 6'1", but when Charlie Farrell wrote this, apparently somewhere it goes up to 6'3". So Alice Hancock said Cooper was 6'1" to 6'3". Okay, so that's she obviously thought he was quite tall for the time, and as people who watch my channel know, I still contend that Cooper was probably around 6 feet tall, because we have so many of our primary witnesses who actually interacted with Cooper giving us that sort of height.
Ryan, you probably recall that I posted on Facebook, so when you take into Bill now saying wavy, we have Alice Hancock saying slim build, black hair, wavy. We have Gate Agent Hal Williams saying slender build with black wavy hair. We have Robert Gregory saying jet black wavy Marcelled, and now we have Bill Mitchell. So that's 4 people
saying wavy,
saying the Cooper. So if someone's got Asian stick straight hair or non-wavy hair, that's four people stating that makes it pretty conclusive in my mind.
Yeah, wavy cannot be ignored. Wavy gravy for sure. It's pretty wild. KK51, no, Max. KK51 is the mugshot that Alice Hancock picked out as looking like Cooper. Okay, KK51 is not the new suspect. Okay, what else? But yeah, also we've got some age things too. In Flo's 302, she just says mid-40s, but in the new thing that Agent Charlie Farrell wrote, he's got Flo saying 43 to 47. Also eyes, look at that, brown or dark. So, dark eyes, I guess, could be dark green or something, but that's interesting that the eye color that he wrote down for Flo is brown or dark. And what I think happened here is I think that Charlie was able to work off of the handwritten notes, okay? Because all these notes, remember the FBI take handwritten notes. All these notes are in the FBI. They're part of the evidence. So I think that when he was going back and writing these descriptions, he was looking over the notes as well. And not everything that's in a note is going to make it into the 302s. Because, like, for example, you could almost see an agent writing down that Flo said he was 43 to 47, but when he's making the 302 document, he just says mid-40s or something. He's not being so specific. Because I think that in hindsight, I really think that they thought they were going to catch this guy pretty quickly, because they caught all these guys pretty quickly. So I think the level of detail in some of these things isn't as precise. And so I think a year or two later, Charlie Farrell is being a little more precise by adding these things in there, because they didn't catch the guy.
Yeah, there was a good post and discussion on the Facebook forums this week about, interpretation of, did Cooper say it, and then was it telephoned from Flo or Tina to the cockpit, and was that exactly what Cooper said? Is that what Tina or Flo interpreted it? Is that what Bill Radachek interpreted it to be? So who actually said negotiable American currency or uncirculated? Who said pick it up in the air versus after we get up there? Did a flight attendant forget to say the denomination of the money, and Cooper actually told them what he wanted?
Right.
And so we labor over every single word because we're freaks and that's what we do about this case. But I think the one thing I reflected upon after reading that wonderful exchange this week is we have to labor over every word, but we also can't assume that anything is exactly as Cooper said it.
It's kind of a catch-22 a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Evidentiary. It's difficult. A couple questions here. Shelby says, "Hi Ryan, you've said before that you don't think Cooper lived long after the jump. What do you think was his cause of death? Do you think that played a role in his decision to commit the crime?" Well, the reason why I don't think he would have lived too long after the hijacking is I just think that the longer you live, the more likely you are to tell somebody something, and that's going to get out. So you have a guy who dies in the 70s, early 80s, whatever, then just from my point of view, that makes it more likely that, because I mean, some people can keep their mouth shut about things their whole lives, I suppose, but I just like the idea. So I don't have a cause of death. I don't think Cooper was sick or anything. I mean, there's no indication that he was ill or said anything about being ill. So I don't think so. I think his motive was just wealth. Yeah, dead men tell no tales. Now, another question says, "Don't shoot me down for asking this," and I won't shoot you down, Nick, of course. It says, "I know people hate this theory, but does anyone give credibility at all to some or all of the flight crew being involved?" No. And I have a video, and this is not meant as an insult to your thing, Bill or Nick, but go look up my video when we're done here. I have a video titled "The Dumbest DB Cooper Theory," and it's actually about that. Because no, there's no way that they could have been an inside job, because for one thing, these people made good money, like actually really good money, including the flight attendants. There was no other gig for a 21-year-old woman at the time to make that kind of money. I mean, they were making like the modern equivalent of like $65,000 with all their expenses paid, getting to travel and all this other stuff. So it was a really, really good gig for uneducated, women without degrees or whatever, right? And the pilots made really good money too. So why would they risk that? And I guess the thing too is people seem to think it was one of the things about Cooper that's a problem. I guess not a problem, but because I wouldn't have thought about it before I got into this crazy stuff, is that hijackings were a dime a dozen back then. They were very common. Almost they sometimes had 2 a week. Okay. There were back-to-back days in San Francisco. I think at some point in June, early June, there were back-to-back hijackings, back-to-back Cooper copycat hijackings, back-to-back days. And one poor schlub was on both planes. There's some news article. He's like, they're saying, "Is this going to scare you off from flying?" He's like, "Well, no," but he was on back-to-back hijackings and back-to-back days at the same airport, trying to get to the same place. Like, am I never going to get there? But no. So I think that just the fact that it didn't need to be anything deeper than. I think a lot of folks think because Cooper got away, there must have been something a little deeper going on. But I just think he benefited from being the first greatly, I think. And he benefited on it, and he benefited just by being the first and by just being who he was. He was a cautious person, didn't say a lot, didn't give away much information about himself. He did a really good job at this. And this is a guy, in my opinion, this is why I have formulated the idea that this is a guy who has been in high-stress situations before, military perhaps, or either military and or crime in his life, and wasn't afraid of doing these things, wasn't afraid of inconveniencing people. We can look at people like Rob Hetty or McCoy, who were not comfortable being ugly to people. And it showed. They were almost overacting. They were being too dramatic because they felt they needed to be intimidating or something, right? Whereas...
And they ended up alerting the passengers as well, too.
Right. They didn't even come close to having the passengers not know they were even doing it. And so McNally's a lot like that too, because McNally was a seasoned thief at that point. He was a criminal. And so Cooper was either a criminal and or had military experience that made him not scared. But I think it's almost more of the criminal mindset, honestly, because McCoy was a brave guy. McCoy was a amazing soldier and no doubt was not a chicken shit, so to speak. And he was freaked out about doing this. So that's what I think. Do you have any thoughts on his personality there, Packer?
On Cooper's or?
Yeah, Cooper's.
I agree with everything you said in the fact that, just hearing Tina's voice, he was calm, he was polite, he only got impatient a couple times, that he was comfortable in that environment. So I believe there was some type of aviation, aircraft knowledge experience. It's one thing to rob a bank on the ground. It's another thing to rob an airplane in the air and be as calm and cool as collected when he was, when we know that other hijackers weren't. So I agree with that. I believe that there's some type of mental issue, defect, instability, something, because while we look at it in the aftermath that everything worked out for Cooper, there's so much where this was really could have been a suicide mission.
Well, look, skyjacking had a 0% success rate.
Right. So,
I mean, as a hobby, had a 0% success rate.
So it's very hard for me. And again, I know people say, well, you have confirmation bias because of Skip Hall. Take Skip Hall out of this. I think somebody who would do this, like Mac, like McCoy, we talk about PTSD, we talk about trauma, we talk about mental illness, we talk about intelligence level. But as I said to Darren Schaefer when I did his podcast, I mean, this guy had no idea where he was going to land, what type of surface, if he'd smash through the roof of a cop car, if he'd be impaled on a pole,
right?
Stuck on a tree. And we can talk about how macho it was and the whole, paratrooper and, smoke jumper thing. But this, when you listen to people like Mike Davis and Mark and Lee Gossett talk, I mean, unless you're jumping to save your life out of a burning airplane or cockpit, nobody in their right mind is going to jump into the darkness not knowing where you're going to land and what you're going to land on or in. And
right.
To me, that reeks of if I die, I die type of a mentality.
Well, and that's another element that people seem to forget maybe or don't think about when they think about D-Day. Okay, like that was at night. Okay, so not only are those guys jumping out at night, they're jumping out while being shot at, and their planes might explode any second too. So like those guys, jumping at night is if you talk, like I said, like he just said, if you talk to the seasoned skydivers, jumping at night is even under good circumstances where you can see your drop zone is still scary as hell. It's just not a thing you want to do. And we can look at the fact that a lot of these guys were injured, okay, coming down because they didn't see the ground coming up at them. Rob Hetty was the NCAA champion skydiver. Okay, this guy was really good at skydiving, and he still dislocated his shoulder when he landed because he just wasn't. It was nighttime. I don't think he was a paratrooper in Vietnam, but I don't know if he ever did a night jump. I'd love to talk to him and ask him that if he'd ever jumped at night.
I've shared this with you and with the group at Coopergon, but I talked to one of Skip Hall's stepsons who was a pilot and skydived, and then his actual son, living son from his only living actual biological son from his first marriage, who's still alive, who was a skydiver as well too. They both got injured. Ironically, they both got injured at Lake Elsinore, One landed really hard on a heel and said his knee blew up the size of a grapefruit. And the other got his arm almost ripped out of its socket because it got wrapped up in the shroud lines. And these are two guys jumping in broad daylight in the middle of the day at Skylark Field and at Lake Elsinore, and they were getting injured with those types of conical parachutes that they used back then in the 1960s and early 1970s.
Yeah, Mark says he's done two night jumps, and then I'll show you how rare it is. Mark has, I don't know if Mark, if you're over 1,000 jumps, or I think you might be over 1,000 jumps, aren't you? So Mark has done somewhere around 1,000 jumps, and he's only done 2 night jumps. So that's a rare thing to do, and especially, not knowing what's beneath you. I think that Cooper, like I said, I mean, we can talk all day about whether Cooper engineered some path for them to fly, but he did not.
He didn't.
They had 2 options, okay? Victor 23 and V27. And V27 actually makes more sense because V27 goes away from the I-5 corridor. And if you think there's a bomb on a plane that might explode over an interstate and rain down on a gas station or something, then you would want to get them away. But for whatever reason, they went down V23. So Cooper did not give them anything to follow. So he really was winging it, and that sort of speaks to like John said, that kind of speaks to some kind of mental. I don't care.
Yeah, it's I don't care. I'm
brave.
Yeah, or Larry's. I always love when Larry talks about the profile, and he just goes, he thought he knew a lot more than he knew, and he planned it, and obviously knew how to pull off a briefcase bomb looking like a bomb, whether it was real or not, and knew to ask for parachutes that got him out of the aircraft. But that's the reason why, Larry's the unique FBI agent that thinks he didn't live that night. But it does make it very difficult for me to believe that, listening to Mark and Mike and Lee last year and others, that somebody who was a highly skilled skydiver would have done it like that. Wouldn't have brought on their own stuff or would have given precise directions on, here's the flight, here's exactly, you're going to be on Victor 23, you're not going to deviate more than a quarter mile.
Which is what McCoy and Hetty did. Our 2 skydivers gave precise degrees and everything to follow. Right. They were very precise about it. And by the way, Mark has made 1,590 jumps. So I was shortchanging him. So 1,590 jumps, and has only made 2 night jumps. So they are exceedingly rare. Join Jen says Cooper only smoked 5 cigarettes in 5 hours, not a chain smoker. Well, actually,
7.
It was 7 cigarettes, and it wasn't over 5 hours. He smoked, as far as I know, he smoked all of these while they were in the air over Seattle.
Seattle.
So about 2 hours. So roughly about 2 hours, because there's no indication of him smoking after they landed, when he was busy with the money bag and all this other stuff. So 7 cigarettes. And look, Tina herself was a smoker, or had been a smoker, and she described Cooper as chain smoking. So, I mean, a smoker would be able to know that this guy is smoking pretty heavily. And so Cooper was definitely a heavy smoker. There's no doubt. And they even mentioned, Alice mentioned his mouth had a wrinkled older mouth, and you get that from cigarette smoking. No, Tina only smoked 1 cigarette, Jen. Do we know which pilot was the pilot flying, and if the autopilot was on? If the autopilot was on, would it disconnect if the stairs were lowered? I'm asking because they could have drifted off the Victor Airway. Well, okay, there's several things. Okay, let me break this down, John. Which pilot was flying? Okay, so it was Radicek's turn, because they took turns flying, okay? That was just the way it was. So it was Radicek's turn to fly, but they were on autopilot. Okay, Paul Soderlund, who was the head muckety-muck in charge of Northwest Airlines, said that they were on autopilot. So Radicek tells stories about hand flying the plane, but they were on autopilot. They would have gone off of autopilot if you look at the, do I have the, you'll see here at the bottom here, at the very bottom there, you'll see this kind of like turn, kind of arc. That's them going around PDX. So they diverted around PDX, it seems, to, I guess, avoid flying over the airport with a bomb, I suppose. but they would have been hand flying then. But they were on autopilot most of the way. Okay, so your other questions though, would it disconnect if the stairs were lowered? No, there's no indication that happened. Okay, and you're asking if they could have drifted off the Victor Airway? No, because we have. Okay, so this map here, I mean, it's kind of obviously a caveman kind of drew that with a pencil, but we have the Air Force were tracking that plane and they were pinging its location every 5 seconds. Okay, so we know within a quarter mile was the accuracy that they had on that. So within a quarter mile, every 5 seconds, ping, ping, we know where the plane was. So there's never any, that is why it's very frustrating when there's alternate flight paths discussed with, like, for Eric Eulis and his Western flight path thing, whatever, is because that's virtually impossible. Because not only do we have the pilots saying that they were flying down an airway, we know where they were at certain points because they would radio in, we're over the wherever, da, da, da. And then most importantly, we have the most sophisticated radar ever invented by the mind of man to that point, pinging that thing every 5 seconds and recording its location on a hard drive instantly. Okay, so we know where the plane was. There's no doubt about that. Ryan, do you have any inside information on why Bill Radicek only seems to own yellow sweaters? I don't know, but that is a funny question. Yes, and Nikki's right. The flight data recorder had autopilot. That's how we know it was on autopilot, at least most of the time. Okay. If only the FBI hadn't thrown the cigarette butts out, they might have DNA test. Yep. Well, I agree. They would have. And now I know another thing too that's kind of scary about the hair is that, so I was always under the understanding that aircraft took off that morning in Washington, D.C. and was flown empty to Minneapolis, where the crew joined it and they started taking passengers on. But apparently, Flight 305 was a regularly daily flight from D.C. to Minneapolis in the morning. So if it was the same aircraft, now I've had varying people tell me different things. One, Ed Tinsley, who's on our group, who's an aviation guy who works with the airport, he says that generally they will stick with the same aircraft throughout the day on for example, Flight 305 is the number given to that route. They will usually stick with the same aircraft. In this case, it would be N467 US is the aircraft that was flown that day. But then Bernie Harrigan, who is a 727 pilot from back then, said that sometimes they would change the planes at different stops, but keep the same flight number. So I don't know. But the point is that somebody may have sat in that chair before Cooper, and that might be their hair on there. But I think it's a low odds percentage because most folks didn't want to sit in the back if they could avoid it because you're next to the toilet.
And they don't recline, right?
And they don't recline, right? So I think that people probably wouldn't have done that as much, in my opinion.
Now we also assume, and it's based on good research, that they would remove before Velcro was invented. They would snap those cloth towels that some airlines moved to paper after a while, but those white kind of look like a big napkin or Velcro on the back, that those would be removed at the end of the flight day and replaced before the flight morning. But again, that's an assumption made on, could somebody who sat on that the night before it got into DC and they just left them on and changed them when they got back to Minneapolis? We don't know.
Yeah, there's a photograph of Cooper's seat there in the middle. And in case you're wondering, that is a fingerprint smudge on that headcloth there. It's of the photograph. So I guess when the photograph was being developed, touched it or something. But yeah, that is Cooper's seat there. And as you can see above Cooper's head, that's where the magazines went. And that's where Tina had to go dig around for the magazine when the cowboy came up and asked for his copy of Sports Illustrated, which she couldn't find. But yeah, there's row 18. There's Cooper's seat. Right there, and there's the headcloth they got that off of. All right, so let's see. was Cooper and Mac the only ones to have knives? I don't know. I imagine that I don't know. McCoy had a mystery bag with him and had a bunch of goodies in it. I would think that if you were doing something like this, you would bring a knife.
Pocket knives were very common back then too. Like both my grandfathers carried pocket knives. My dad carried a pocket knife. So it was kind of like you had a handkerchief. I used to hate that people would blow their noses into cloth and put it back in their pocket,
right.
But that was a big thing back then. Both my grandparents, my uncles, my dad had handkerchiefs, which just grossed us out. And they all had pocket knives. So I think it was a very common thing that you just carried a pocket knife with you.
Yeah. Okay. Chris M says, do you believe that old military chutes might be a safe alternative compared with a modern chute? Well, Mark answered that the old military round canopies are ideal for the Cooper jump. And that's actually probably true because Cooper's parachute was I liken it to like a life preserver. Like it was function over form, I guess. It was specifically designed for people who are not skydivers. Okay. Everybody in an air crew who jumped out of a plane in World War II, all of them, unless they were repeat shot down guys, had not parachuted before. Okay. No one did that for fun back then. That wasn't a thing. So, and they had no training at this. So these were designed for people who have never jumped from a plane before, purposely designed to open up, whether you're spinning out of control, whatever, just pull the ripcord and it's going to do its job. So he had actually a really good parachute. And that's kind of one of those myths about the Cooper case, is that he chose a inferior chute when actually he chose not that he had much choice between the chutes. They were pretty much the same, but he chose it. If he was going to jump out with a parachute, that was a good one to have. Mark calls it the bulldog of parachutes, and it really was. It was a good parachute to jump with. Okay, good fun question. What's each of your favorite pieces of memorabilia or evidence from the case that you own? Packer, what is your favorite piece of it?
I have a lot of stuff I'm holding right now. I'm going to be bringing to the conference an actual Boeing 727 interphone.
Nice.
Where you can see where Tina kept her finger depressed on the button here. When you talked, you pressed it just like you would on a CB radio. And so she held that down. And I don't know if Cooper actually, before he jumped and he was talking to them saying, no, I'm all right, I don't need anything or whatever he said, if he actually said that into the interphone or not. But I'll be bringing this along to the conference. Boy, I've got a lot of cool stuff that I'll be bringing. I've got a parachute. I know Ryan has a parachute. I think my favorite part of the conference is Bill Mitchell bringing his ticket, because I think about how rare that is. And so that's my favorite piece of memorabilia that I don't own. Mark will be bringing his Cooper 20 again with him, so people can actually see a piece of the Cooper money. But yeah, I've got too much to kind of pick one thing right now that I would say is my favorite. But I've got a lot of kind of really crazy stuff. I have all the matchbooks that people have, that type of stuff. I've got a captain's hat that Captain Scott would have worn that I'll bring to the conference. And Ryan and I'll bring all of our stuff, and other people bring their stuff. So that's another great thing about the conference, is you get to see that I have a replica, same model, patent number, Towncraft 3 JCPenney snapper tie. I've got an actual pack of 1971 Raleigh cigarettes that I'll bring. So I'll have that there as well too. So all that stuff is favorites. And Ryan and I both covet being like Mark someday and having our own piece of Cooper money. But for those of you that don't know, having a bill that's like the one that Mark has is now well over $10,000 based on their rarity and the fact that we're so few of them. And even little pieces of a $20 bill, like smaller than a postage stamp size, are selling for around $5,000 now. So it's a very expensive piece of memorabilia.
Oh, wow. So I would say, okay. I would say my favorite. Well, Mark is saying he's going to bring his 727 Annunciator panel, which has the air store door warning light.
Nice.
that they noticed. I would say my favorite piece of memorabilia is going to be that parachute back there, which I'll be bringing. That was a parachute packed by Earl Casi. He was asked to create an exact replica of Cooper's parachute, and that is the one that he created for Richard Tusaw. And I got that from Richard Tusaw's estate. So that's a cool piece of memorabilia for sure, I would say. And a Lil Coop's coming too. I think so. Lil Coop's coming. Just be careful. His cigarette always falls out of his hands when you handle him too roughly. That's good. Stillboom, the man who found the bed sheet. He's saying you could drop by your local Kmart and pick up a replica bed sheet. That's a reference there to, this is Chris Dunlop, Stillboom, to the last expedition that they did 2 years ago with Eric, and Stillboom found a nasty bed sheet and was joking like, oh, this must have been Cooper's. And Eric was like, oh, it could have been. And we're like, oh boy. So the bed sheet, the relic. Yes. Yeah. And the money bag is coming again too, Nikki. Money bag. Lil Coop does steal people's thunder. People like Lil Coop for sure. Okay. Let's see. But yeah, we'll be bringing a lot of stuff. I love the captain's hat too. That's really neat. Okay. Let's see. What other questions? Somebody says, what kind of, could Cooper have had military boots, goggles, and gloves in his mystery bag? Sure. I mean, it was, again, the bag was about like that. It was about 4 inches tall and about the same width and length as the briefcase, according to the best witness who saw it. So, in fact, J. Edgar Hoover himself, there is a document where, it's funny, I asked Larry Carr, and I remember asking John Detler as well last year about this. You know, we see a lot in the FBI files in early on in the Cooper case where it'll be like the director, here's a memo from the director, the director says this. And I remember saying, is this J. Edgar Hoover himself? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. Like, he was a hands-on dude. And he was hands-on women's clothing too, but he was also hands-on on these sort of things. But that's him. J. Edgar Hoover learned about the mystery bag and wrote them saying, hey, might it have had a flight suit in it or boots? And they wrote back saying, well, it could have. We don't know, sir. It could have. So that's kind of cool.
He was Bad Bunny before Bad Bunny started wearing skirts. So
Bad Bunny. Okay. Did not expect a Bad Bunny reference. Okay. Yes, I was confused about the bed sheet. We all were, Elizabeth. We're all confused about the bed sheet. Why Cooper would bring a bed sheet with him on a plane. Packer, you're getting asked a tough question. What skip traits, if any, do not fit well within the Cooper evidence?
Well, let's be very clear. The one thing that for Skip and all the suspects is we do not have a piece of direct evidence that links anybody to the hijacking, right? So whenever I talk about Skip, I preface it with the fact that I'm just a different breed of cat, and unlike other people that have written books or promoted a suspect, I have never stated that I believe Hall is Cooper, and I never will until I would have, direct 100% confirming evidence of it. With that said, there isn't a lot really for him. I mean, people really got into his facial features and wrinkles on his forehead and ears, and did he have marks on it? I mean, stuff that's so minuscule in a way it kind of, Ryan and I talked about this, and it'll be interesting when people see photos of your suspect, Ryan, as well too, on what people will key on, because we're getting to the point where the suspects that are coming forward now, whether it's Milton Vordal, Skip, the ones Ryan will bring, that we're just not, I think we've really tightened in what people that are serious about this in the community think about what someone should look like, as opposed to when we see a photo of Walter Recca or Vince Peterson or others that just seem like a bridge too far. Mm-hmm. And that's an interesting photo of Skip, because you look at, the facial shape, the nose, everything. And you can see how that's a 1964 passport photo. If you age progress that 7 years, could he be, the guy on the left there? But what's interesting about Hall is when you look at him straight on, his face looks wide. And then because he has a narrow forehead and high cheekbones, when you see side photos of him, that's when his face looks skinny. Like you think he would have a very thin face. So as I talked about with Ryan and others, Hall is a real Zelig in the fact that I showed a slide that I'll be showing again this year of just different angles of Hall taken on the same day, from above his eye line, where you can see the top of his head, to him at eye level, to below level. And he has all three sketch hairlines. So if you're looking at him from below eye level, or he's looking at your head on, it looks like Bing, and he's got wavy hair. If you look at him, from the middle, you can start to see that he has a receding hairline. And if you look at him from top, he looks like the Dracula sketch, where you can actually see he's got a little bit of balding going on at the top. So there's a lot to like about Hall. There you see, that's one of the only photos of him as he's right before the 1970s, where he's now growing longer sideburns as well, too. Right. And again, the blessing and the curse of Hall is that I now have so many photos of him. When I wrote the book, I had 20. I now have over 40. Some of them are high def. Some of them, unfortunately, aren't, where he's wearing a brown suit with a black tie. That's like, oh, could we see that? But you look at how thin his nose looks in that photo. It looks wider in other photos. So I think once somebody kind of hits a certain amount of meeting the height requirement, the weight requirement, the ability to maybe have a Latin swarthy appearance, I just consider them in. So whether it's Milt, whether it's Ryan, your new suspect, I don't really take it much further than that. Again, you look at his nose there and look at how thin it looks. That's in 1963, and you can see he already has he has a turkey neck at time, and it was a family trait. So Skip is a great suspect. I use that word now. I didn't the first 2 years. I called him a person of interest, but I mean, he's a great suspect that just unfortunately, like every other suspect we have looked into, lacks the direct evidence of putting them on Flight 305.
No, Skip's good. Like I said, I really, as you said, you don't even get that deep into things when you look at, Kenny Christensen or something like that, where you're just like, that's just, his face is kind of round and bald, and, or Dwayne with his ears, things like this. There are just things that kill suspects immediately, really. So when you're getting down to the nitty gritty of the guy had a small mole somewhere, I mean, things like that, it's like, that kind of is telling that it's kind of a admission that you have a good suspect when you're having to say, oh, well, look at his forehead wrinkles or something. It's like, well, okay. Well, for one thing, Cooper had forehead wrinkles, so I'm not sure what your argument is on that anyway. But no, Skip Hall is, I would say the only issue there. Yeah. Jen is saying that she says Skip Hall was nice looking. Can't see three stewardesses calling him homely. And, we may have an explanation for that, right? With his illness.
Yeah, I'll be showing some photos, and specifically photos from 1971. And one photo that I may have shared with Ryan, but I missed it in my communications when John Pappas, before he passed away, where Skip is making a fake smile as he's opening up a small Christmas gift like this, like showing his teeth. And I wondered what that was all about. And I was kicking myself that I didn't catch it at the time. But it was because they had given him a set of mother of pearl men's jewelry, and he was smiling to show that his teeth were pearly. And wow. John's wife and John confirmed that for me. And of course, with Cooper, we've got and that's a 1968 photo of when he's going through his hepatitis and all that. So again, that proves nothing except that he had mother of pearl jewelry, and it was confirmed by members of his family. But I don't disagree. I mean, the man did not have a problem getting women. He was married 3 times, had a woman with him even at the end of his life when he had cancer. So I wouldn't debate that he wasn't a good-looking guy in his youth. I do think he got pretty haggard through hepatitis and what appears to be a potential heroin addiction at that time as well, too, that made him look very different than he looks like in that 1964 photo, or even photos from around the time of 1968. He looks like he looks like an older brother that maybe 7 or 8 years older than him in 1971, for whatever reason, had aged him that much in that short amount of time. But I'll let you guys be the judge of that when you see the photos.
Right. And this photo is from what year, do you think?
That is probably 67. And one of the things I noticed about Skip is he always slouched when he sat too, which is very weird because he is a 6 foot tall guy. But all these pictures of him, always have him kind of slouched. So he's actually wearing the same vest the year later when I have the other photos that I told you about. But you can tell it's, he's wearing a tie there, obviously. So he was wearing the same vest the year later. But all those photos always have him kind of hunched down in his seat, which is kind of odd.
And, we talk about what a chameleon he is too, because if you look at here he's looking like, looks totally different.
Very healthy and robust as he's getting ready to run his meth ring for the Iran-Contra.
Was that when this is about
time in the mid 1980s? Yep.
And you can really tell his coloring in this picture too.
Yeah.
Really can tell why he was able to pass off as Latino to people. Because he is very dark complected for sure. And that's really, and it turns out that's just his Native American blood, correct? Is that what?
Yeah, so I was able to identify heredity. When I wrote the book, I knew that his mom had a Russian background. And I was trying to figure out how this man could pass as Lorenzo Pasillo, and people thought he was Cuban and Mexican. And of course, he spoke Spanish. People mistakenly said that he was born in Cuba and changed his name to Lauren Hall, which isn't true. But yes, I've written, Brian, I sent you the new chapters of the book where his grandmother was part Oglala Sioux, Lakota Sioux Indian. And so that really is, and I learned the whole story, which is that's an amazing story in itself about how Skip's grandmother even lived twice. She was actually kidnapped once as a child, and how her father died when she was 2, and he was in the cavalry and married this Indian woman in the north part of Kansas, and he was an explosives guy in the cavalry, and they let him run the fireworks on the 4th of July, and he was with 2 guys, and a box of fireworks went off and blew a big chunk of wood into his leg. And they took him to the doctor, wrapped it all up. But 2 weeks later, he got tetanus and died from it. So,
oh my gosh, yeah,
crazy story about how his great-grandfather married this pure Indian woman, that his grandmother was half Indian. And so his father was a quarter Indian. His father wanted to hide that and never wanted that to be known, because it was very similar to someone wanting to hide other ethnicities or not be known as that. But it explains a lot about how Skip did have Native American blood, and that he is an Olaga Sioux descendant. Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull and all those guys, he descends from them. And he did have relatives in Minnesota, and that tribe went from Minnesota all the way down to Oklahoma.
Somebody's asking if he was fluent in Spanish. I mean, he had to have spoken Spanish.
He was, yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, so he lived in Cuba for several months and traveled to Mexico and was able to communicate in Spanish. And even in one FBI document, he self-admits that he was fluent in Spanish.
Yeah, I mean, we would have to be. I mean, he was training, Nicaraguan rebels and things. So, I mean, I would think he would know Spanish well. And what's the this photo here is this one is he from when he was is this when he was an MP?
No, that is a new photo that I'm coming out with now.
Oh, okay.
Where when he returned from Germany, he served in post-World War II Germany in counterintelligence, and that's where he learned to become an MP and provost, marshal, investigation training. So when he got back to Kansas, actually, this is prior to that. Sorry, Ryan. he was in the Army in 1947 and had an epileptic seizure, and they sent him home. And in fact, he was sent to Fort Lewis for his separation in Tacoma, Washington from the Army, and went back to Newton, Kansas as a guy who had just been over in Germany from 1949 to 1952. But he couldn't be in the Army, so he was in the Kansas National Guard, and he joined the Newton Police Department. So he was actually in law enforcement. And that's a picture of him. I also have a picture of him next to his cop car, where Skip Hall was actually a police officer. And if you see which side he has his gun on, it's the left side. And Skip was ambidextrous, but mostly left-handed. But I have a picture of him golfing from the right side. And one of the reasons why his family confirmed they believe that he was able to get back into the Army, even though his first separation said unable to serve again, is he was not just a marksman or a sharpshooter. He was an expert shot from both sides. So that's why he got back into the Army. He went to Fort Knox and then immediately got sent over with about 700 men to this post-World War II counterintelligence training school, where he actually was renditioned about potentially having to assassinate, socialist figures and communist figures. But that's the reason why that my research shows he got back into the Army when his first separation said he no longer could serve. It's because he was such a good shot that they wanted him in the Army and they wanted him in counterintelligence training.
Yes, and of course, this is the same guy who met with Lee Harvey Oswald before the assassination and was in Dallas at the time. Boy, lots of creepy things about Skip Hall for sure.
Right. So, add to the list of finding out right before CooperCon, a little teaser that, I'll be showing more of those photos of Skip as an actual police officer.
Just funny.
Which is incredible that he started his life of crime after that, starting in 1956. And he was a criminal. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
And mostly associated with financial crimes, whether it was check fraud, shoplifting, things like that he got involved in the end of the 1950s and early 1960s.
Right. Elizabeth says, Ryan, what eliminates Skip as a suspect for you? I don't eliminate Skip. No, I don't. Skip's not eliminated in my view. He's a genuine suspect. He's plausible, which is really all I want in suspects is plausibility, where I can go, okay. I mean, the chances are any of these guys or Cooper are slim, because Cooper could be in millions of people. Okay, whether it's the guy I'm presenting or Skip or whoever, or Verdal or any of these people. I mean, Cooper could be millions of people, but I just want suspects who are plausible. Okay, and there is nothing that eliminates Skip Hall as Cooper. Okay, and that's rare among suspects as far as I can tell. At least, but I'm a picky guy. But like I said, I'm just very peculiar about certain things with Cooper. Like, I really think Cooper needs to. I mean, you can't have, like, for example, you just can't look like Walter Recca and be Cooper. Okay, like, we have an idea. I mean, by God, people, if you look at if you go through the FBI files and just read them, I mean, the number of times you see the eyewitnesses talk about Cooper having a narrow head, right? A narrow kind of a gaunty kind of head. Mm-hmm. It's again and again and again and again and again. I mean, hell, Nancy House, the only thing she commented on Cooper was dark hair and narrow face. So, I mean, that was narrow face is the only thing she remembered. So if you were a blockheaded dude like Walter Recca here, he's this blockhead from Michigan, you're not Cooper. And look at that nose. Okay, that's another thing. Cooper at least seemed to have a average or lesser average nose. Okay, this is not a good nose for Cooper. But these are just things that, if you're a suspect, I can't abide you if you have that kind of certain facial features. Oh, and by the way, people, for those who were in this chat last time and aren't on my Facebook group, the Gary Samdahl photograph, thank God. Now, to back up, Gary Samdahl is the guy who was an air traffic controller who the day before the hijacking was on a Northwest Orient 727 flight. This is November 23rd, flying to Portland. He goes up in the cockpit and says, "Hey, pilots, do you think I could jump out the back of the plane if you lowered the stairs? Can they lower in flight?" And the pilots were like, "Well, I don't know. Why would you ask that?" He's like, "Well, I'm just curious. I think I could jump out the back pretty easily. I'm a skydiver. I wouldn't have any problem. Do y'all think I could do it? Hudla. And they're like, we don't know, pal. And they were, as soon as they landed, they reported him to security. They said, there was a guy in our cockpit. We asked him his name. This is his name. He was an air traffic controller, blah, blah, blah. But not Cooper, though. But this is Gary Samdahl in Vietnam. And the stewardesses saw some photographs of him and said he's way too handsome to be Cooper, is what they said. So, but yeah, he was, I don't know what he did in the Air Force there. I'm not sure why he's got a beret on, but yeah, Gary Samdahl was air traffic control. But one of those Cooper coincidences, right, that you just have to wonder about. And something I was discussing recently with Pat Boland was that the safe house, right? We have this weird story of this rental house in the drop zone that nobody lived in. Like, it was rented for the month of November, and nobody ever moved in. And the guy who owned the rental property said, the guy who rented it kind of looks like the sketch a little bit. But what's weird though is that they eventually tracked this person down as being a guy named Ben Liebson, who was a card dealer in Vegas. But the guy who reported him, when he gave the guy who owned the rental property, he told the FBI, he's dark complected, about 6 feet tall, yada yada. And Ben Liebson is 5'8". Okay, Ben Liebson's 5'8". Now, I looked it up on his draft card today. Leonard Leggett is the guy's name, the property owner. Leonard Leggett was 6 feet tall himself. So I do not think a person who's 6 feet tall is going to mistake somebody who's 5'8" for being their height. And that raises a whole bunch of other questions going, oh shit. Because that's really creepy. You're like, okay, wait a second. So that must not have been Ben Liebson that you saw. I would have thought that the FBI would have got a photo of Ben Liebson and showed it to Legend and said, was this the guy? But there's no 302 about that. And there should have been a 302. They wrote down 302s about everything. So I don't think they did. So that's a mystery there right now that's kind of crazy. Yes. Mark's so right. He says, the Grider phony parachute story shows how American journalism has failed. Worldwide coverage by credible news outlets. Yeah, I know. I was contacting CNN for days and days and days afterward going, look, he's wrong. I can hook you up with an FBI agent who will come on your show and say he's wrong. And they didn't want to, they didn't care. But it's just the Grider thing, and I'm glad that he has kind of shut up about the whole thing, about that. Yeah, Jen, I've thought about this, actually. Jen says somebody should write a book about the major suspects, a chapter per person. Yeah, just because you're right. The suspects in themselves generally are people who led interesting lives. I always bring up my suspect map here. And these guys were interesting people. Look, James Roman, a NASA astronaut surgeon. Okay, that's from France. That's really crazy stuff, right? Melvin Wilson, a counterfeiter, right, who goes on the run a month before the hijacking after counterfeiting $200,000. Dwayne Weber was just this unique kind of thief who was in and out of prison. He had an interesting story. Verdal, my God, the guy worked on the Manhattan Project and was this crazy genius who made the alloy for the SR-71. Ted Braden, we know about Ted Braden. We know about Skip Hall. Jason Langsess the creep. Ragstraw's got a really interesting story. A lot of these guys have really... Sheridan Peterson, what a fruit, right? He works for Boeing, a master skydiver, then goes and lives in a hut in Nepal for years. E. Howard Hunt, of course. McCoy's life is interesting. Gossett served in the Marines, the Army, and the Air Force. Okay, and then became a exorcist, did exorcisms, and was a paranormal radio host. Rekka's life was full of lies, I guess, but I mean, these are just interesting. And Barb Dayton, the first person to have a transgender surgery in that part of the country ever. These are just interesting lives. So yeah, you could do a book on suspects.
And most of them served in some type of heroic capacity in the military. And if they didn't like Milt, he was directly associated with it, with the work that he was doing.
Right. I mean, that's kind of the thing I say about Milt all the time is that he probably killed more people than anybody of these people.
And look, both Ryan and I kind of have disdain for the whole Rekka thing, but and the way that, you know, whatever his veracity was at the end of his life with his storytelling. But he was a expert skydiver who, you know, there's pictures of him at Lake Elsinore with Bud Kiso and all those guys, and he was one of those original jumpers down there.
He was a para-jumper, which is the Air Force's special forces. So he was a para-rescue jumper. I mean, those guys are badasses.
So, I mean, I always tip my cap to anybody who served our country in that capacity. And as you've often said, Ryan, you could write a book about most of these guys. It just wouldn't, they don't have to be DB Cooper for their life to be interesting. And I know that's what's concerning to a lot of people in the community that are fair-minded, is when people kind of start to step on the scale to try to convince other people that the person is Cooper, when they don't really need to validate that the person had a pretty incredible life.
I agree. It's especially with McCoy. I get that bit about McCoy a lot, that it's like he doesn't also have to be DB Cooper. He can just be McCoy. Right. And a
tragic story.
Yeah, absolutely. And that can be enough. Somebody's mentioning that Burnworth always sticks out as a dead ringer for the sketch. Yeah, dude, I mean, come on. He is a very Bingish looking individual for sure. And his story is interesting too. Burnworth believed that, so Burnworth was married to a mob boss's wife. Okay, he was not a mobster himself. Mark is in our chat. Mark knew Burnworth. Burnworth was a pilot for, I think, United, and was a great pilot. And he believed, he was excused when he got back to America after the hijacking. He said, my wife hired someone who looked like me to do this and frame me. Like, that was his defense was, I look like the sketch, a lot like the sketch, but she hired a villain, she hired a double, which is just ridiculous. But, you know, Burnworth, actually, it's funny. So Burnworth, at the time of the hijacking, was living in Germany. He had absconded with his 3 kids. He had taken his kids to Germany to get away from his mob boss wife because they were going through a divorce or something like this. And having been a United Airlines pilot who's furloughed, he's still a United Airlines pilot even though he's furloughed. So he would have had the capacity to deadhead.
Yep, catch me if you can.
Right, and could have done that. And what better alibi than I was in Germany? Do you see my passport stamped? I mean, he could have evaded entry things. So, I mean, I don't think he was Cooper, but a plausible suspect is what I'll say, because there's no sign of villainy to him, really. I mean, the only villainy he did that we know of is kidnapping his kids, which is terrible. But he was saying he was trying to keep them safe. He was trying to be a dad or something like this. So
yeah, wasn't it Bruce who said he was a womanizer? But it's like, so what? I mean, what does that that have to? Yeah.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, you're not gonna hijack a plane.
There were a lot of men. If you watch Mad Men, who.
Right. Absolutely.
A whole different world back in 1971. So
where was Lakich and Gossett the day of the hijacking? I don't know. I mean, we don't know. I mean, Gossett at the time of the Cooper hijacking was doing ROTC stuff. He was working at Weber. Is it Weber?
Weber State.
Weber State is in Utah, I think, right?
Right. At a reserve, at a ROTC facility.
Right. Yeah. And because we have this photograph of him from, this is November of 71. That is a photograph of him, November 5th of 71, giving ROTC guys their first Army checks or whatever. So I think that's kind of neat that we have a photograph of him from the month, which is pretty cool.
Got to check out his sideburns there.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was going to say. Is I don't know of any photographs of him with sideburns. Not sure about this one here. What is this? I have a photo of him. As well. That I'm not sure what time period this is. He looks really short in this picture, but Gossett was about 5'11", so I think he's standing on beneath these people or something for some reason. He looks kind of short there. I'm not sure when that picture is, but he's got sideburns in this photograph there. As far as I can tell, it's kind of hard to see, but I'm pretty sure he does.
Yeah.
So, but Gossett's problem is I don't like his. Gossett has some facial features that I don't like for Cooper.
And a high voice too. I mean, I listened to his voice and I was like, that is not a low, pleasant voice. Now, certainly someone can disguise their voice if they want, but
sure,
his speaking voice was not that.
Right. He has no pronounced eyebrows, which is kind of an odd feature, right?
Yeah.
His lips, he does not have a pouty lower lip at all of any sort. And his nose is really wide. Like, that's the problem with him. I think people like him so much because his hairline looks just like the hairline from the Cary Grant sketch, right? I mean, that looks very similar.
He was one of the 7 people that the FBI did test the partial DNA, which still could be garbage, and we don't know if it's Cooper's, if one of the 3 is Cooper's, but they did say that it didn't match Gossett. But again, that doesn't prove anything. But no. Gossett also, I think, wanted to be known as Cooper. He supposedly confided to a judge that he was working with. Greg Gossett says he brought him into their basement, opened up a file, and showed him a safety deposit key and a file on Cooper. He supposedly took his 3rd wife to Tina Bar, and supposedly was at the Ariel store for one of the Ariel days and left his business card there. And then wore I believe a bandana with a paratrooper logo on it when he would go out jogging later in life when he lived in Oregon.
Even though I don't think he was a paratrooper, actually. Yeah, you can see here, this is the Gossett. It just says that there at the bottom there that Gossett is excluded as a contributor to the DNA. But again, I have no confidence in that DNA, like none.
Right.
Negative.
It could be like, is the hair actually Cooper's? If we ever find it, we don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult. But yeah, let's see. With the exception of Eric's attention now being shifted to Pigeon Springs, is there anything new and exciting going on in the Vortex? I would just say wait to CooperCon. I mean, there is a suspect that people will like coming out soon that is plausible. Like I said, I don't know if he's Cooper. I mean, probably not. But where was Kenny on the day of the hijacking? I don't know. Probably flying somewhere. Honestly, Kenny is just not a valid suspect in my opinion.
You know what's interesting? Just because we have people joining the Vortex at times, and obviously we welcome everybody with open arms and look forward to seeing a lot of new people. Next month, come to CooperCon because it's a blast. I went to my first one in 2022. If you told me I would have written a book within 2 years and be speaking at CooperCon and now running the conference with Ryan, I would have told you you're insane. But here I am wearing DB CooperCon gear. And, it's an amazing journey that you can go on to look into this stuff and be part of it. And there's new stuff. Tom's going to have the new tie test results. We're going to have Sharon there for the first time talking about being a flight attendant. We're going to be talking about hydrology in a way we never have in regards to the Tina Bar money. So it's not just going to be diatoms and the same old stuff anymore. It's going to be the new discussion with that. We had the McCoy parachute. Some people call it a hoax. Some people call it a fiasco, whatever you call it. That was new this year. And it's important that, we want to make sure that we're discussing that in a fair and honest way to, never prejudge something, but also be very vocal if something isn't passing the smell test. And when you have Larry Carr, the former FBI agent who, was in charge of the case from 2007 to 2010, Ryan and Mark all saying this is BS. I mean, I think that's important when we're trying to solve one of the 3 top mysteries in United States history.
Yeah, that was so annoying. Somebody's asking about Joe Lakich, my opinion on Lakich. Lakich, the problem with Lakich, okay, for one thing, I feel like that head is too broad. That's a big old head. The head's kind of broad and wide. I mean, those cheekbones are just enormous. I don't see a pouty lower lip at all either. But
Yeah, the point, Ryan, I wanted to make too about Gossett is, one of my first forays back in the community was watching Brad Meltzer's Decoded. And that whole show was 1 hour, and Robert Blevins was in it, who wrote,
Kenny.
About Kenny. And, you watch a show like that and you think, wow, maybe it was Kenny. And then you watch the first show on Rackstraw and you think, well, maybe it was Rackstraw. And so, if Ryan wanted to spin a tale about the guy he's going to introduce, he could convince you he was Cooper. I could, make claims that Skip Hall was Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
But what I loved about the community and my growth in it is, everybody goes through a rigorous, doesn't matter if it's Ryan or me, with Skip, with Milton Vordal, with whoever, Walter Recca. And nobody should be surprised that there'll be a large number of people that doesn't believe that anybody's Cooper. And there's people that believe Cooper died that night and will, never live to tell the tale as well, too.
Seat 18E is, okay, he says, that's a nice name, by the way, but it says, Eric makes a reasonable argument that Pigeon Springs may still have the parachute, briefcase, etc. I like the way he is swinging the bat, not sitting on the bench. That's a fair thing to say, but, big but there. We still have to work within the evidence, okay? And there are we don't have a lot of concrete evidence in the Cooper case, but one thing we have that is about as concrete as you can get is where the plane was, okay? That's not really, it's not even worthy of any debate, okay? This was the most watched airplane on planet Earth for a few hours, okay? As I said earlier, the most sophisticated radar ever known to man at that point was pinging its location every 5 seconds within a quarter-mile area and automatically recording that on a hard drive, which spit out its location, okay? So they had a map, a flight path map, within a quarter-mile accuracy with the most sophisticated radar on Earth tracking that thing within a day, okay? That was given to the FBI the next day, okay? And we also have, another thing, too, is the pilots, okay? Something I didn't know until I was around airplanes with my dad growing up is that, there are roads in the sky. We call them jetways if they're above 10,000 feet, and if they're below, they're called airways, right, or whatever. So there are roads in the sky. Pilots just don't fly willy-nilly. And so they were following a road. Think about this. It would be like saying that a guy was on the I-5 interstate between Seattle and Portland, and yet you want to argue that he was actually driving through the woods 30 miles to the west or whatever. It's like, no, he was on the interstate. And these guys were on the airway that they were following, just period. And we have real-time radio communications of them calling in their locations as well. So we have the pilots calling in their real-time locations. We have them being assigned a interstate to follow, essentially, a road to follow. And then we have the Air Force every 5 seconds pinging them their location. So we know where the plane was. Of all the things we don't know about the Cooper case, that is not one of them. We know where the plane was at all times. So Pigeon Springs is not a thing. Okay, that's just not, if Eric wants to, and there's just so many other things too, about that too, that we know approximately where Cooper jumped out as well. Okay, Pigeon Springs is, gosh, I don't know, 20, 30 miles north of where he jumped. Okay, so 30 miles is a long way. Okay, and like I said, we know approximately within, I don't know, I would say within 3 or 4 or 5 miles where Cooper jumped, my opinion these days. Now he's going to drift. The problem is, and J. Edgar Hoover was like, one of the things, go back to J. Edgar Hoover. J. Edgar Hoover suggested throwing a dummy out the back. He goes, can we have a dummy like out the back that could kind of let us know where he would have landed? And they're like, well, no, because we don't know what altitude he pulled his ripcord, right? Because that makes all the difference in the world. And that's something we can never know, is at what altitude he pulled the ripcord. If he pulls right away, he's going to drift 3 miles. They expected about 3 miles, they thought. If he pulls 2,000 feet, 1,000 feet, he's going to be pretty close to where he jumped out. So, he landed north of the Columbia, but yeah, Pigeon Springs is just, again, they were coming up on Portland at the time that they felt him jump. Pigeon Springs is not anywhere near Portland. Okay. It's 60 miles away from Portland. So
there's something, I learned because I actually, believe it or not, got a minor in biology when I was in college and did a lot of forestry and botany stuff. And it's the litter layer or the detritus of the ground and what happens over time. So to think that there would just be a parachute out laying with maybe a few leaves over it or, a bag of money, you're talking about things besides the metal that would be on the parachute that would not only degrade over time, but I would equate it to, think if you, not your lawn, but if you went to a place where you knew the grass wasn't going to be cut, like just where the trees start on a slope in a forest or a park near your home, and you threw a regular old jump rope on there and left it there for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, the leaves that fall, the dirt that splashes from the rain, all the things that happen, and now times that by a decade and 2 decades and 3 decades and 4 decades and 5 decades, it would be very odd to find something visible to the human eye above the surface that specifically, like without metal detecting, that you would be able to find. Is there a chance of it if Cooper left a parachute out there? Sure, but the odds of something like that being found like without metal detection is literally zero. So I don't know if people, and I'm certainly not, you can tell the way I'm talking about it, I'm not even that educated on it, but I'm smart enough to know that you're not going to just find a parachute, leaning up against a tree in a forest somewhere. The litter layer over time would usurp some of it, and the conditions, nature, the fact that most of that material would degrade over time, just like the money, just like the Tina Bar money degraded. And that was found in 1908. We're talking within 10 years of the hijacking. That's why the bed sheet was kind of such a weird thing to me, that you would think that, I found a bed sheet laying out that, maybe just needs a laundry cycle. And look, I mean, think about if you left a bed sheet out for 50 years in southern Washington, what would happen to that over time? Again, I'm not an expert in it, but I did get into metal detecting during the pandemic, and I've been doing it for years now. And so I just know how hard it is to find things, and there aren't just a lot of things. Just even bottle caps are down 4, 5, 6 inches, in the dirt. So it's hard to believe that something would just be laying out there at this point, this many years later.
Yeah, somebody, let's see, who was it? Somebody's asking about if we know the winds aloft and stuff of where he jumped. And actually, yes, and I'll show you that now. In this document here, we can see, because they did want to figure out what the weather was like where he jumped out. And you can see here, Cooper was actually, when he jumped out, was 7,000 feet above sea level. So he's 10,000 feet AGL, above ground level, but there were 7,000 feet above sea level. So, and that -8, those numbers are all going to be in Celsius, by the way. So it wasn't -8 Fahrenheit, but wind speed 20 knots. Now again, jumping out of a jet going however much speed, there's going to be some variables there, but that was just the winds aloft. There you go. So if you're wondering about that's what you have there. All right. So somebody's asking again about Joe Lakich, but nothing too, like Joe Lakich. I don't like the motive either. Joe Lakich's daughter was killed in a hijacking in October 4th of 71. Okay. And Joe Lakich actually sued the FBI and won. It was the very first time anybody had ever won in federal court a wrongful death suit against the FBI. And he won it, and won a tremendous amount of money as his family deserved, because he adopted the daughter, because his daughter lost both her parents that day, because young Susan was a year old, and her mother was killed in the hijacking by her father, who then killed himself. And so he raised this daughter, Susan, who lives in I won't say, but, yeah, but she's very nice. But to think that this guy who inherits this 1-year-old granddaughter is then gonna, who after his daughter dies in a hijacking, is then gonna go threaten other men's daughters in a hijacking just doesn't ring true. I mean, John, you have 3 daughters. I mean, that doesn't ring true to you, does it? I wouldn't think.
No, and it's what's his prior criminal background to that. And, you know, Ryan, for those of you that haven't gone back and looked at all Ryan's great videos, Ryan does one about what it was like for DV Cooper to wake up in the morning, you know, smoke that first cig out of bed and make his way to PDX and get on that plane to do the hijacking, and what he would be thinking that morning, what it took to do that, to have the briefcase bomb, to have the note ready to go, and to potentially jeopardize the lives of everybody on there. I mean, it's hard for us to think of that way because everything went quote unquote okay, where we say nobody got hurt, even though talk to Bill Mitchell about what it did mentally to him and others. But I just don't see this being a guy who was, well, I'm just going to go do my one score because I'm down on my luck. This seems like someone who would have more of a Mac type of mentality.
Yeah, I mean, it's a heist. I mean, why would you? How is doing this getting back at the FBI for killing your daughter? I mean, you're extorting an airline. I mean, what sense does that make? That's not getting back at the FBI.
Well, and are you going to survive the jump and leave the little girl fatherless, and maybe it doesn't go well and you end up in jail, and now the little girl doesn't have anybody?
Well, and Lakich has no aviation history. He was infantry. Okay, he was an infantry officer. His career, no paratrooping experience in his record at all. So there's nothing really there. Blake says, thanks for the data. The 727 flight data recorder showed the exact time he jumped and caused a pressure bump. No, unfortunately not. They have a data recorder, but it didn't. It picked up some bobs, they called them. But as I explained, I'm pretty sure we have the exact time when the jump happened because they were actually on the radio talking to their bosses when it happened, because we have Radicek going, oh, you know, feeling the pressure bump and this earplug popping out, all this other stuff. So we pretty much know when it was. Everyone has a grudge. I know. Look, I'm a criminal defense attorney. I've had over 1,000 clients. They're all pissed about something. It's never their fault. So it's never their fault that they're a criminal. It's always somebody else's fault. After hitting the ground, how do you think Cooper carried the loot? Is it possible he used the briefcase for the bomb? No, I don't think so. I think the briefcase. So look, we have an idea of what Cooper looked like when he jumped. Okay, we have a pretty solid idea of Cooper looking like this when he's jumping. You know, he's got a parachute on, he has cord wrapped around his waist, and then it's on a tether to the money bag, or at least that's how he was seen the last time he was seen. Okay, now what he did for 30 minutes, he may have done some other stuff, but the briefcase is never mentioned by. The FBI assumed, and I would assume also, and judging by the copycat's behavior, that Cooper just tossed the briefcase out. It was of no use to him anymore. It's just dead weight. And so the FBI believed that the dummy chute and the briefcase were just tossed out the back. And we know, like I said, we know that Mac tossed a briefcase, attaché case, he'd call it, out the back. Hahnemann left his on the plane, and the crew, threw it out the back themselves. They were like, "Oh, let's get rid of this," And I know McCoy had McCoy's suitcases that carried his mystery gear. He tossed those out. Those were a couple of those have never been found, actually. Some stuff from Mac has not been found. They never found Mac's attaché case, I don't think. So, and Mac's attaché case was thrown out over farmland in northern Indiana. So that should have been found.
I do like that they found his suit pants and thought that he would be walking around without pants on.
I know. Yeah, the hijacker he lost his pants. But no, Mac's attaché case was never found. So Mac's briefcase was thrown out over farm country and was never found. So not that hard to believe that Cooper's briefcase thrown out over very dense forest would have never been found.
Ryan, would you agree that because this hadn't been done before and Cooper didn't know about the oscillations that the pressure bump would happen when he jumped out, that he didn't think they'd know where he jumped out. And therefore, with the plane landing in Reno, Cooper could have hit the ground, obviously left the weight of the parachute behind. It wasn't his parachute. And then taken the money someplace where he could stow it or hide it to either come back and pick it up, because it would have been quite risky for him to be walking around with a big canvas bag full of money. We don't know if he did. We don't know if he had an accomplice. We don't know where he landed and where he would have put it and hid it so that he would know where to come back and get it. But in Cooper's mind, he had all the time in the world, because he didn't know that there would be a pressure bump or an oscillation that would have let them know exactly where he jumped. They could have thought he jumped south of Portland or just outside of Reno. In his mind, I would think he didn't have that information.
No, and he, as you said, at the very least, he assumed that they would not find out until they landed in Reno, which was 3 hours later. They didn't land in Reno until 11:02 p.m., and he's jumping at 8:11 or so. So that's 3 hours. So yeah, he's not. I mean, I think he's not going to be lingering, but he's not going to be in such a rush that he's going to just be reckless.
We also don't know if he blew out his ankle or his knee or his hip, or we have no idea.
But as far as transporting the money, my guess would be that he stashed it and went and got transportation at some point and made his way back there. That would be my guess, because that's how McCoy did it. And again, people could say, well, don't look at copycats, but humans are humans, okay? We do things a certain way, and generally you're going to do things that make sense. And that makes sense, that you're not carrying a money bag around, right? Or carrying a briefcase, all that stuff, just dead weight. So now I think he stashed whatever, when he landed, he stashed the money somewhere, and like I said, just got rid of the parachute. The parachute was not going to have any evidence of him in it. But I do think, though, I'm not opposed, though, to him picking up the parachute when he comes back with his car, just to get rid of it elsewhere on his own terms.
Or to make it look like, if it was the Jeffrey chute, like maybe that he did drown in the river, and maybe the 3 bundles of money go in with the parachute over the bridge, and that's a very short distance from Tina Bar there as well, too. We just don't know.
I mean, Lee Gossett, our Loadmaster Air America guy at CooperCon last year, I was telling him about the Jeffrey chute, and he was really interested because he was like, that's what I would do. He says, if it's, because let's just pretend Cooper lands at 8, he lands in his parachute 8:15 or whatever, after descending for however minutes. Actually, he's probably landing at like 8:18 or something, because he's going to be descending for a while. But let's pretend it takes Cooper 3 hours to get back to where his car is or wherever it is, and he goes back and throws the stuff in the trunk. And let's say he's driving south, he's going to be crossing the Columbia River on the I-5 bridge at like 3 a.m. And this is a time before there's CCTV cameras. There's no, cameras anywhere. Nobody's got an iPhone and whatever. I mean, he could have just pulled over and just opened the trunk and tossed it over the side of the bridge.
Yeah, the other thing is there's a railroad trestle there as well, too. So there's thoughts of, could Cooper have jumped on a train car to get, and we just don't know. We have no idea.
Yeah, we have no idea. But did he go to Brazil like the Anglin brothers? Oh, well. Maybe, but now that is like that's the Anglin brothers. Was Cooper one of the Anglin brothers? No, but there is a guy who thinks that maybe in a Vortex episode about it, maybe about Frank Morris, who was with the Anglin brothers, being Cooper. But it turns out Frank Morris was like 5'6". He was a really kind of a wiry, little bitty guy, which is probably how he could escape from things so easily, because he was a little Houdini guy. But Frank Morris, though, was a genius, though, for sure, and probably could have done something like this if he put his brain to it. But I do love the Anglin brothers were specifically sent to Alcatraz because they kept escaping prison, and then they escaped from prison. Like some people, you just can't contain them. But yeah, the Frank Morris and the Anglins helped Cooper out. I know you could write some like Ocean's 11 movie plot with all these different.
So one of the things Ryan, that I'll be sharing just for a couple minutes at CooperCon is in 1956, Lauren Hall was in prison, and there was a plot for he and 3 other guys to break out. And I believe, based on, and I think Ryan, you as a prosecutor looking at that, one of the 4 snitched, and the only person whose address isn't listed is Lauren Hall.
Yeah.
But they literally had tied bed sheets together to put out the windows. They had busted out a toilet. And I just cracked up reading this story about Lauren Hall being part of an alleged prison break in 1956. And the cool part about that is I'll be showing for the first time the mugshot from back then of Lauren Hall that nobody has seen yet except Ryan's seen it. But I'll be sharing that. But it's just another, it's like we talk about all these suspects, whether Hall's Cooper or not, that it's number 12 of it's number 12 of 30 crazy stories you could tell about the guy. And he literally was involved in a prison break plot where they were tying bed sheets together and busting out the toilet out of a cell block to get through the pipes to escape.
Right, and then what? And
like
then
Shawshank through the pipe.
And then what? When he's like 65, the DEA are chasing him through three continents. Isn't that what the article says?
Yeah, from Costa Rica, and then he's finally down in Panama. And his cousin, who was the same attorney who representative for the House Select Committee on Assassinations in 1977, because for people that don't know, Skip Hall was given immunity and testified for 2 days to Congress in 1977 for his alleged potential involvement in the Kennedy assassination. And they specifically wanted to know about his involvement with a woman named Sylvia Odio, who had said that Lee Harvey Oswald and 2 other men had visited her. Lauren Hall's name is in the Warren Commission report. It's in the HSCA report. And I know when I first brought up Lauren Hall, people are like, oh, here's a guy that's trying to say Bigfoot is DB Cooper, or, Frank Morris is DB Cooper, or the Unabomber is DB Cooper. But that's just all factual information about Hall's life. But yeah, Shawshank and Escape from Alcatraz are part of Skip Hall's story as well, too.
Interesting guy. Somebody was saying, too, so I'll have to get to it. Somebody was mentioning about Tina. Somebody was on Reddit was saying, please convince her that Tina didn't, or that I have to find the exact. Let me find the exact question. There was says, Ryan, please, for my sanity, please try to debunk my belief that Tina put the money at Tina Bar herself. Nothing else makes sense to me about it, other than the amount Cooper offered the stewardesses being one and the same of that money that was found. Sometimes people ask me what my craziest, like if I had to be a nutcase on Cooper, what is my nutcase belief? And I guess if I had to say a nutty belief, it would be that Tina Bar has something to do with Tina Mucklow, like just the name at least. Because, and again, I'm not saying that, okay, it could be a coincidence, but as I mentioned before, if Alice Hancock was the one who sat by Cooper the entire time, okay, and we found Cooper's money buried behind Alice's restaurant somewhere, right? You go, well, Jesus, what the hell? And so, like, okay, maybe, okay, is what I'm trying to say. It's that is as far as I'll go. But as far as trying to debunk her belief that Tina put the money there, well, look, we do know that in 1980, I believe she was living. She had already entered the, Sisters of the Poor, or whatever they were called. Her Carmelite nunnery that she was in. Nunnery, is that what they're called? In convent? Mm-hmm. Convent. Okay. Convent, yep. She was already in the convent there outside Portland at the time. But the money had been there for a while, is the belief. It had been there at least for, the FBI believed at least for a year. You know what's funny, people, is that the FBI's theory, like if you actually read the FBI files on Tina Bar, their theory, they basically say, look, we don't really know, but our best guess is that it was ice flow that pushed it there. Okay, because the question is, how did it leave the flight path? How did it get there? Because the flight path is 10 miles. It crossed the river. The plane crosses the river 10 miles east or whatever of Tina Bar, and the FBI were thinking, maybe it was a glacier, because the spring before, the spring of '79, there was a really, really crazy winter storm And oops, didn't mean to put Gary Sandall up there, but there was a winter storm and huge ice flows. I mean, the Columbia was basically frozen there. There's the railroad bridge there. It was basically frozen solid, the Columbia. And the FBI actually had, it's pretty interesting. The FBI actually had several, I think two different like Corps of Engineer guys contacted the FBI when the money was found and said, hey, I think that money got there because of the ice.
Ice chunks. Yeah.
Ice chunks will just push everything. Like think of like, almost like the Great Lakes, for example, are glaciers digging. Most of our lakes in North America are glaciers digging holes in the ground. And so their thought was that maybe ice pushed the money there. But I mean, that was and so the FBI were like, I don't know. We've been told by two geologists that this is a possibility. I guess that's something that we can ask Ron and Karen about ice having anything to do with this.
Yeah.
When that happens.
Ryan, I'm obviously if looking into Skip Hall, we'll look into, is there a connection to Tina Barr or whatever? But the one thing that Skip Hall aside that intrigues me about that $6,000 DB Cooper potentially leaving that is Jeffrey Gray's book Skyjack. And when he's interviewing Florence Schaffner, I don't think Florence was being untruthful, and I don't think Jeffrey would have written it the way, but he said, so many strange things happened after she took a month off from work to clear that night from her mind. Then a man started following her like a shadow. He boarded a Northwest plane she was flying on. Why was he stalking her? I know the hijacker from prison, the man said. He wants to talk to you. Flo pushed the man away, told him to leave her alone. He resisted. I want to tell you, this guy's not just a hijacker. He was in the Bay of Pigs. This guy works for the CIA. Obviously, I've used that for the Skip Hall, but if that story is true and someone besides Cooper, because she would have recognized if it was Cooper, was trying to, get in touch with her to say, this guy wants to get a hold of you, then I can see Cooper have potentially have left money somewhere for them saying, hey, he wants to get in touch with you, whether he wants to strong arm you to keep your mouth shut or wants to let you know. You could make the theory based off of Florence Schaffner herself telling Jeffrey Gray that. And it's such a bizarre story that she has no reason to make it up. Mm-hmm. And Jeffrey, the way he wrote it, obviously he's, got his BS meter up, would have said, I don't believe her or whatever. So he believed her. That would potentially lead credence to the questioners, the original person who asked you the question on, was Cooper potentially leaving money for, a payoff or just to make sure that those tips that he wanted to give to the girls got there and someone was going to contact Florence to see if she wanted to get the money or not.
Right. And you have those articles.
Right.
Talking about burying money on beaches, that the CIA would do that. And I know that Cam Kaminsky, who is a Vortex fella, was posting on Reddit about his idea that this was a payoff, that basically it's like, look, you're paying off an accomplice. You say, I will leave the money on this beach. I'll bury it and I'll put a stick or something over it or something, and go collect your money, like instead of like having a direct exchange that could be seen by the powers that be, as you said, to say, hey, look, I'll bury the money on the beach tomorrow and I'll put a stick next to it or something. I don't know, something like that. And maybe the money just never got picked up, right? The guy never got there to get the money. Because, as we have determined, it just seems like that the science behind the money indicates that we know that money bundles don't float. They just don't. We know that it didn't get wet in the wintertime, okay? And there's no silt, so that doesn't seem like a flood pushed it there. Now, I mean, I still want to believe in natural arrival because that just makes the most sense. I mean, my God, this thing is, look at the
and because of the condition that the bills are in too.
Yeah, they're just like it's trash essentially. If you look at how far I measured, do I have that I can show you guys where I had to measure? I tried to figure out how far away. Yeah, here we go. Try to figure out how far from the shoreline Tina Barr was. or the money was found. If you look at this photograph, I guessed about 30 feet because these guys are on the far right. That's right where the money was found, where this guy is kind of standing with his hands in his back pocket. So I kind of measured that guy. I said, that guy looks kind of tall. He's about 6 feet tall. So I laid him across. I laid his body shape across, as you can see, to measure how far that is. About 30 feet from the water line. So, but definitely below the high tide line, I believe. It's minor, I think. It definitely below the floodplain for sure.
It's crazy to think now that that guy standing that tall is underwater right now in today's Columbia River.
Yeah, he's underwater, which is crazy how the river changed. But I guess I still want to believe in natural arrival just because that does make the most sense. I mean, it is. I think they call that flotsam. I think it's called things that wash up on rivers. It's called flotsam. I think. Maybe it's off. I think it's called flotsam.
Yeah, I mean, it could be like you said. It gets frozen in an ice block in November, December, and breaks off and falls out. And or Cooper kept the 3 bundles, and when he gets rid of the Jeffries parachute, they go with it so that somebody can think that he died in the river, or he buries it there for himself in case he needs to make a getaway or ever needs to head up to Canada and he knows where he can find $6,000. But I mean, it's all just speculation.
Yeah, it's just who the hell knows. A couple of things people keep asking. Ryan, my memory is letting me down, but wasn't there something suspicious about Ingram's parents and the timeline around the money find? No, not really. So not at all. Okay. So basically the Ingrams, kind of were falling on hard times where they were from in Arkansas, and, Slim, Dwayne Ingram is called Slim. That's Brian's dad. Slim got a job, working, Slim's brother got a job in Vancouver working as a industrial painter, and he got Slim a job there. And they moved up there. This is actually a photo of them the year before they moved. So nice family photo. Thanks to Brian, gave me that for the Brian gave me this for the book, which is great. A nice family picture. But no, and you can tell Slim. I love Slim wearing just a white undershirt for his family photo. It's
awesome.
It's so 70s. I don't care, babe. I mean, it's he's like Wooderson from, Dazed and Confused. He don't care. But yeah, but that's the Ingrams. But no, so they moved up there, and they had actually been to Tina Bar several times before. It's kind of a misnomer. It was their first time there. They had gone to Tina Bar a good bit. They used to take their dog there. I forget their dog's name. Maybe Nikki knows their name. Maybe Nikki's in the chat remembers the name. But their dog was a retired police dog. Like a canine who had been retired. They had this German Shepherd, and they would take him out there to go running around and stuff. Because Tina Bar is not far. It's an easy drive from where the Ingrams lived. And so they had been out there before. And I don't think there's anything weird about it. Especially whenever my damn book comes out, I've got a great chapter on Slim, mainly about him. And to think that he was involved, the chapter opens up with his quote saying, "I wish we had never found the money," because it was just not good.
I think unfortunately for Brian and his family, the whole Dick Briggs thing, and that kind of story, and I'll just be kindly call it a story, brought into the speculation that the Ingrams would have had to have been in on it for that story to happen. Mm-hmm. But I don't believe that story to be true. So, and I believe everything, Brian shared with the community and that Ryan has written about as the true story. And again, that family paid a huge price for this find. People say, "Oh, gee, we found a lot of money. How lucky are we?" Well, I think Brian would be the first one to tell all of you that there was a lot of bad that went along with it as well, too.
Yeah, a lot of bad went along with it, but interesting stuff though, as far as it. But there's nothing nefarious about it. I mean, He didn't know. I mean, he called the bank. He was like, "Look, can I bring this money in? I found this money." And they said, "Well, if it's got visible serial numbers, then you can bring it in." And he vacillated on what to do, and he had never heard of DB Cooper. And they said, "Oh, this is Cooper's money." People at work were like, he came the next day and said, "We found all this money on the beach," and da-da-da-da. A bunch of 20s, and his coworkers who were from Vancouver were like, "Well, that might be Cooper's money, ha." And he called the FBI, and the rest is history. But he thought about it. He didn't want to, Yeah. Okay. So yes, he says, cheers for answering it. I swear one documentary I saw had a piece on the parents. Yes, that's what we're talking about, is that was duplicitous filmmaking done by the Colbert people who are trying to make a rack straw connection to this thing. And they have a part in there where they keep showing, I forget what they're showing on a laptop. They're showing Brian and Slim something on a laptop, and I forget exactly what it is. But Slim has a reaction where he rolls his eyes like this, and like they're like, oh, see, he's uncomfortable. Da, 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 da. But what Brian told me, he's like, look, he was furious because the way they edited that. They kept saying, we're gonna film this again. Here, watch this clip again. They did it like 10 times, and finally Slim was like, oh my god. And so that is the reaction they got, and they presented that as the first reaction, which is just, really. Colbert is Grider in a suit. That's a funny way to say that. Slim got
Darren.
Yeah. Okay, so you've fallen on hard times in Arkansas, but go fishing near Vancouver. Well, they moved there, Jen. They hadn't been living there for a year or two by then. So I mean, that wasn't crazy. Now, yes, weren't they dredging the river around Tina Bar? They were, but the dredges that they used would have torn that money to pieces. We have the Corps of Engineers and the FBI files. The FBI go to the Corps of Engineers and say, hey, is this possible? And they go, no. They go, our things just churn, and the money would not have been that way. It would have been shredded to pieces if it had gone through a dredge.
The other thing people bring up is that the Fazios cleaned sand there, and they had an auger. And so people thought because the outside of the bills looked like they might have been tumbled, but you have to remember that the rubber bands were still together on those bundles when they found them. I mean, the rubber bands were coming apart, but the rubber bands were still on there, and had those edges around the middle of the bills been, those rubber bands would not have been found with the money.
I agree with you. Yeah. And that also speaks to it not being a really violent event that got the money there, because the rubber bands were still intact. And I mean, I've done experiments where because I wanted to see, I got a money bundle of it wasn't $6,000, but it was 3 bundles of cash, rubber banded together. And I just threw it. I threw it on the ground. I just tossed it across my living room. And it started shifting pretty badly already just from that force. So any sort of violent force that would have torn the edges off of it, I would think would probably not keep the rubber bands on there. I mean, I don't think the $6,000 would have been. I
posted on the Facebook page some other pictures of rotten money, and so money that has been buried and has access to moisture, will eventually begin to degrade and look similar in certain ways to the Tina Bar money.
Yeah, I think I may actually. I thought I actually had photographs in my files of that. Oh yeah, here's actually a picture of after I tossed the money I tossed the money bundle on the ground. Then that's what was happening already. It was already kind of just tearing apart. So I don't think that would have gone through any violent stuff. And yeah, it's interesting. I thought I had those pictures in my files. Maybe I put it in the Tina Bar folder. I thought I had pictures of that cash.
Here, I'll messenger it to you right now.
Yeah, of what cash looks like that's been buried for a while. Yeah, let's see if we can pull that up here in a second. I think the money was hung in a tree. What's funny is I see it. What's funny is there actually is a 302 about money in a tree. There was a tornado that came right through that area, like a big one too. It was like a F4 actually, a pretty big one. And there we go. Let me upload this. But yeah, and they reported money being launched up into trees after that incident. So, okay, this is what some money looks like that's been buried.
Buried in like a bundle, but rotting.
Yeah, you can see the edges are already starting to rot off a little bit. That is interesting that the edges are what's going first.
Yeah.
You know, which I mean, I guess that would be expected, right? That the edges would go first, but that is interesting that it's like that. Ryan, didn't you say there was evidence that the money hadn't been out there that long? That was the conclusion of Leonard Palmer, the hydrologist from Oregon State, and of a couple other people with the FBI, is that the money had been. They thought the money got there in '79. It had been there about a year. That's what they thought. Yeah, so pretty wild. Let's see. I don't make fun of Eric Eulis, but find him to be a bit of a grifter. Eric is I would say the difference in Eric and a grifter is that Eric's a true believer in the things he's saying. Like some of the grifters surely know that they're full of shit. That's what I think. I mean, I don't, like, if you want to be insulted, go read any of the Walter Recca books. Just terribly insulting to all of our intelligence. Okay. Yeah, Tom K thinks that the money, according to Tom K, the money went into sand at Tina Bar within a year of the hijacking. Yeah. Well, the thought is it either got there within a year of the hijacking or or within a year of Tina Bar. I mean, that's for whatever reason, people who study this stuff. Again, Tina Bar, I'm generally no habla inglés when it comes to Tina Bar, because I just don't. Even if we found out, like, we could know who Cooper was and still not figure out Tina Bar. I'm convinced of that.
So one of the things, I'll give a little spoiler for CooperCon with Skip Hall, is that I've talked to his nephew, and just in the last couple of months. His nephew was Army Airborne paratrooper, and then went into law enforcement in the state of Kansas and was with the Kansas State Sheriff's Department. And I talked with him for over an hour, and we've messaged back and forth multiple times. But he was Skip's, Skip was his uncle. Skip had one sibling, his sister, and his sister was divorced and moved with her sons to Sultan, Washington. And he shared with me, yes, Skip helped them move, and that Skip was there visiting them, and that there was another family, there was a reason why they moved to Sultan, that another family of Skip's relatives there lived there, and the man of that family worked for Boeing for over 40 years and was kind of like an older cousin uncle to Skip. But that Skip was actually there in 71 and 72 because this man graduated from Sultan High School in 1972. Well, what time is graduation? Graduation is May, June. And that's the time of the diatoms, around the June time that Tom believes that those diatoms are. So I'm painting a picture for Skip Hall with the caveat that, again, I'm not trying to convince anybody without facts that Skip Hall was in DB Cooper. It's just odd that I now have a family member who's very highly trustworthy, a guy who spent his entire career in law enforcement after the Army, who says that his uncle came there and was there in, moved them there 1971, 1972. And I'm also in the process of talking with that other family members on what that person did for Boeing and that Skip was directly related to. But, that whole thing of if the money was there the following year, whether it was Skip Hall or another person, you would have to believe that either something naturally occurred, like the ice, brought it where it would then be exposed to those summer diatoms, or if there was actually human intervention that person would have, the soonest they would have been able to do that would have been the summer of 1972.
Yeah, good stuff there. So somebody, let's see, some other stuff. Some people are saying, could the packet of money blown out of his jacket during the drop? I mean, possibly, but he's not jumping anywhere near there. Yeah. And speaking of which, somebody says the dude himself buried the money on the night of he jumped.
And remember, 3 packets, not just a packet. It's 3 packets. So that's a brick of money, right?
Yeah, it's a brick. Yeah. It was a brick that they found. It wasn't 3 individual packets of money. It was a brick of
$6,000 and 20.
Yeah, it was a brick of 3 packets, essentially.
$6,000 and $20 bills.
Right. And it says the dude himself buried the money on the night of the jump. I don't think so. I mean, maybe, but the problem is he's not jumping anywhere near there. So, I mean, we know within I would say 5-mile area radius where Cooper jumped, and he's jumping 20 miles away from there. Now, he could have gotten there that night and done something with it, possibly. But again, I just don't know why you'd bury money on a sandbar.
On a public beach, basically, or private, semi-private beach, right?
And what's so frustrating about Tina Barr is that there is literally no theory that makes sense. Honestly, it is so strange that, I mean, people have tried. I mean, there are so many Tina Barr theories, and they're all outlandish, really, because there's no really, just doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, think of the convoluted. If you actually hid the money there, if you weren't the person retrieving it, how you would describe the V tree and everything on, there'd be, can you imagine Flo or Tina or Alice out there digging around the beach, 2 feet away from it and, not knowing where it is. It's kind of a really ludicrous thing where you'd have to say, Ryan, like you said, someone put a stick in the sand. Well, all it takes is a dog to come and grab it, or another Brian Ingram to grab the stick, and the money's gone forever. So,
and thanks to Nikki, George was the name of the canine dog. George the dog. Ryan, how deep was it buried? Not deep at all. When Brian was basically Brian was not even digging around. If you see Brian, the way that Brian did it, see if I have I guess I have I don't have a photo of him doing it, but come to CooperCon and he'll tell you all about it. But Brian,
they were going to grill some hot dogs.
Yeah, he was like, basically he was sweeping with his arm. He put his arm down and was like sweeping, because so cattle, the Fazias had cattle. They had a cattle stampede like a day or two before. So the beach was all craggy from hooves. And so they wanted to, Slim's got, a thing full of firewood. And he tells Brian, hey, we go smooth out a place. So Brian he's not digging, he's smoothing out, really. And his hand or his arm bumped up against something. And he tried to smooth it out again, and it hit it again. And that's when he just pulled it out. And he just pulled it out. And so it was shallow. So maybe the cows churned up the sand or something when they were coming through and pushed it a little higher up. But we're not really sure how deep it was, so can't really say. Okay. Discuss the death of Casi. I don't think, look, I can't imagine it has anything to do with Cooper. Okay. I just don't think so. Casi apparently, it's my understanding. I called Bruce a while back and I was like, Bruce, what do you think about Casi's death? Because Bruce has probably investigated Casi's death more than the cops did. Probably. I don't know. Casi, two things. Casi may have been a homosexual secretly, okay, and had some things like that. Number two, that's a guess. Or there's some sketchiness to that. But one thing that is certain is he was a gambler. Okay, he actually was a gambler. And so this may have been a gambling vendetta sort of thing. Yeah, Nikki says it best. That's the best way to say it, Nikki, because I don't really know. But Nikki says, Mouse, that was Casi's nickname. Says, Mouse was no saint. Something he did caught up to him. Basically. I may have been wrong on him being, God, I can't defame the dead. It may not have been that he was gay. It may have been that he was a school teacher. I'll just say that. Okay. So it could have been that too. I'm not sure, but it was something like that. But I don't think it had anything to do with.
The weirdest part of that story is the wallet being mailed back.
Yeah, right. Tell that to people.
Well, I don't even know. So Casi is murdered
in his garage. Bludgeoned.
And his wallet is missing, and it arrives in a package. Did it get sent to the police department or the family? I think it went to the family. Or the house.
It went to the house. I think it mailed it back to the house.
Yeah. mailed the wallet back to the house. So, you know,
That's
really, really bizarre story.
and the neighborhood is not a bad neighborhood. It's actually a really posh sort of place there.
Yeah, Larry Carr, who covered the case, just said, and it had talked with Casi, I believe. Larry said that might have been the only murder ever in that area that was ever recorded. It was like a nice suburban area where there was never any real crime. So very strange story.
Yeah,
But Casi, obviously didn't see Cooper, wasn't on the plane, couldn't identify him. So for it to be related to the Cooper case,
how and what? I mean,
is pretty odd.
No, there's just no doubt about that. Okay, so I still think he must have known where he was going to jump somehow, some way. I mean, I think he could have. I think he figured it out. I mean, you're flying south for 30 minutes. I mean, there's no other big city approaching other than Portland. And he could have seen the lights of Portland in the distance because the pilots reported that at the time of the jump, they could see the lights of Portland. So
it's not illogical. And in fact, I agree with Eric on this one, which I don't agree with Eric often. But, the fact that he wanted those stairs down at takeoff, you could read into that two things. Number one, he just didn't know how to do them, so he wanted them down.
Yeah.
But you could say if he wanted them down at takeoff and he wanted them to fly to Mexico City or whatever, that he was going to potentially get off that flight early to have the most amount of time to escape because he didn't know that there would be an oscillation or any way that they would be able to tell when he jumped.
Yeah.
And so the thought process is that he potentially would have wanted to land very close to Tacoma, potentially just a few miles after they took off or when they got to 10,000 feet, to have the most time to get away.
Yeah.
It's not illogical to think that. We don't know if it's true, but to think that he would wait to see the lights of Portland when you're talking about triple cloud cover. And even though the McClellans or Mr. McClellan told you, maybe Brush Prairie, you'd be able to start to see the lights. Again, you got this guy who didn't say follow Victor 23 specifically. I'm going to clock the time. I know that we're going to be flying at exactly this amount of airspeed. That's going to put me over this point at this time. And that's where I'm going to jump. Could that have happened? Maybe, but it just doesn't seem like Cooper was that precise.
Yeah, I agree. See, how about, okay, so not sure why this is, what are you asking there? Selfies? How about the hair sample and cigarette butts? What is that a reference to? I'm not sure what you were referring to there. Yeah, the placard is not from 305. That's for sure. The placard is not from Flight 305. No way, no how. We have photographs
with the placard on the plane in Reno.
In Reno, so it's not. Yeah. And again, the placard is beneath the flight path anyway. So it doesn't. What difference does it make? It doesn't really make much. What doesn't make much difference. Let's see. Trying to figure out Tina Bar money is a fool's errand. I am with you. That's why I don't devote much time to it, because it's not going to, even if we figured it out, it wouldn't tell us who Cooper is. So it doesn't, I don't think it moves the case forward much.
I just wish they would have gotten that Jeffrey shoot, man. That's another one. We think of the hair slide, the cigarette butts being destroyed, but the fact that there was a parachute, underneath the bridge on the shore of the Columbia River that was reported and nobody went and collected it is just cray-cray.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, this parachute, a white military round chute, was allegedly spotted, hung up on the rocks of the railroad bridge on the Columbia, and they called the Vancouver Police Department and said, hey, they think that there's a parachute out here, might want to look into it. And they said, basically they laughed it off and said, well, Cooper jumps 30 miles away from here, so, I don't know. Beats Jamie. Hello, Jamie. Jamie says, why did it take so damn long to figure out the placard wasn't from 305? For years, it was pretty much established, and the fact it was. Well, two things. Flyjack will take the credit for that. He'll say that, I mean, he's probably right, that placard, he identified that placard actually wasn't on a 727-100, which is possible. But for my point of view, I have visual evidence. I contacted the photographer named Marilyn Newton for the Reno Gazette or whatever it was back then. And she's like 80 something. And I was like, do you have any of your old photograph negatives or high quality stuff? And she goes, yeah. And I got a bunch of her photographs. She photographed the plane that morning and that night. Her photograph is this photograph of Rommel, the German Shepherd, who ate the crew meals. That's Marilyn Newton's photograph there. But anyway, I was able to get really, really like super awesome negatives of her photographs. So, I mean, I have like 80 megabyte files of the plane sitting there, which are great. You can zoom in and the placards are there. So, we got that last year. So that was kind of cool. But like I said, I think Flyjack perhaps has already proved that. But again, visual evidence is different. People will believe visual evidence.
Yeah, the big thing is, as Ryan said earlier, was that people were justifying where the placard was found to say that the plane was on Victor 23. But for those of us that believe it was on Victor 23 or within a mile of Victor 23 the whole time, it was never an issue. If you're trying to say that the plane veered off Victor 23 to the west or flew to Clay Elum, then it doesn't really help your case to talk about the placard. But
yeah, I agree. Yeah. And so Silaphiz says, I don't think any of the suspects are the real Cooper. Well, neither do I. So, I mean,
yeah, I think that's Ryan and I are kind of really different because, we're running this business together, but he's a Cubs fan. I'm a Brewers fan. We should be giving each other a hard time right now, but we don't because we like each other. And we're both going to be talking more about suspects. But at the end of the day, he and I are not two of the guys that are like, our guy is Cooper.
Almost certainly not.
We just are. I mean, I just can't imagine ever uttering those words about anybody until there would be definitive evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that you could say, wow, this person really was DB Cooper.
I mean, Cooper could have been a million different guys.
Right.
And
the fact that I just found Skip Hall 2 years ago, now Ryan has a guy, means if we keep looking, how many other guys are going to fit the physical description, have some of the experience, have maybe some criminal background, whatever. Milton Vordal was the year before that. And so, like you said, just because we found these guys, there were a heck of a lot of guys that age who served in the military, may have had some minor or major experience with parachutes, that smoked cigarettes, because most of them all smoked back then. So I think it's very interesting especially when you hear from family members who believe that their loved one is DB Cooper, that confirmation bias is a wonderful thing. It keeps us all alive. It lets us run away if we think we see reeds blowing and a tire might be in there, even though it's just the wind. Our mind connects the dots to say, we better get the heck out of there. But it also allows us to connect dots when there may be not dots to be connected.
Jeffrey Gray calls it seeing Jesus in the toast.
Right.
I think.
Yeah.
Then he says specifically, someone who claims he is DB Cooper is not Cooper. Oh, absolutely. Whoever Cooper was, he kept his mouth shut. No doubt about it.
Yeah, because someone who claims he's DB Cooper would know specific things that he could prove that he was DB Cooper, that would jog the memory of the flight attendants, could have kept one $20 bill. There would be some specific things, as opposed to saying, here's a safety deposit box key where I kept the money in Canada, or, I floated a bag down the river that had the Tina Barm money in it. Those are odd stories if for someone who's claiming to be DB Cooper.
Yeah. Lord Byron's asking about how tall is Eric Eulis. I would say Eric's probably 6'4". He's tall. Probably 6'4" would be my guess.
I'm just under 6'1", and I think Eric's got a couple of inches on me, so I think he's probably 6'3".
Yeah, I'm 6'1". I'm 6'1" too. So I mean, we're about the same.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I are about the same height. So I would say 6'3", 6'4". He's taller than.
Yeah, and Tom Kay's tall too. I took a picture with those two, and I felt like I was,
Yeah, Tom's a big guy. Tom's a lot bigger than you think. When you see him,
right.
Tom could have been a linebacker in his day.
Yeah.
Tom was a big guy.
Mark is tall too.
Yes, absolutely. Mark is tall. Mark's taller than me,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
So the thoughts on whether the grudge is real. Again, everybody's got a grudge. I think that I honestly think Cooper was just saying that because, I mean, it's cooler than saying I'm just a dirty thief. And that's why I'm hijacking your plane. I have a grudge, and just, again, I'm a criminal defense attorney. I've had over 1,000 clients. They all have a grudge. I said
the devil made me do it. Right.
I mean, McCoy would have said he had a grudge. McCoy would have said something about, everybody's got a grudge except Mac. Mac would have been like, I just want this money. And he would have said, I just want the money. That's what's great about Mac. Interesting concept there. He says, DB Cooper was a anti-hero early on and 9/11 changed that. Yeah, 9/11 certainly changed a lot about hijackings. Certainly, I mean, the idea of negotiating with all these guys, I mean, that goes out the window. But they did negotiate with hijackers back then. That was what they did. In fact, the FBI gave them a choice. Do you want to negotiate with him and pay the ransom and we will catch him later? Or do you want us to go gung-ho and catch him now? And most airlines, said stand down. In fact, Northwest Airlines, the president of Northwest Airlines told the FBI, you stand down. I don't want my plane getting damaged and my crew getting killed. We're just going to pay the guy. And we have, we have insurance.
$200,000 that we have insurance on a $4 million plane, which, at that time, $4 million was what, times that by 7. So in
quite
today's money. So, yeah.
Says, do you think Cooper was a seasoned criminal or was this a one-off thing? I mean, seasoned is, I don't think this was his first crime. I'll say that. I don't know what seasoned would be, but, it says, is Shale Sonnen the biggest grifter in the DB Cooper game? No, he's not grifting because he's not getting any money off of it.
Yeah, he didn't write a book or anything like that. But
no, and this is his suspect for those who don't know. It's a guy named Thomas Jett. That's Shale Sonnen's guy. He was a Indian or some sort of Native American of Yakima or something. I'm not sure.
Now it does look like his sideburns go past his ears, so maybe Shale has something there.
Yeah, well, you never know. I mean, but again, that guy does not look 50 years old, so.
Yeah.
He was. I think he was in. I think this guy was only like 27 at the time of the hijacking too. So I don't. And if we're going to discuss, I mean, if we open it up to suspects in their 20s, then boy howdy, I got a good one. The guy who I've mentioned him before, people that there was a guy who died a week after the hijacking of internal injuries, who we know for 100% certainty was in Portland. Like, of all the Cooper suspects out there is a suspect who is if he was older, I remember when I learned about this guy talking on the phone with his brother. His brother is a anesthesiologist of some sort. When I talked on the phone with this guy, when I was like, oh my God, it's Cooper. And then he told me the age. I was like, no! It was like Con! I was like, no! Because, I mean, you talk about this guy. Let me give y'all a brief scenario of this guy. You talk about a perfect guy. So this guy was a paratrooper, okay, in Vietnam. Okay, he comes back and he gets into like skydiving and hang gliding and things like this. Then he's like a genius whiz kid. He's very much like Frank Abagnale in a lot of ways. He pulls off the biggest embezzlement in the history of Colorado. Like, I believe to this day, is my understanding. Embezzled like $4 million from his boss, okay? And escapes. He gets away with it for a while. And he decides to open up a leasing. He decides to buy a 727 and lease it to like football teams and things like this. This was his idea. So he is a pilot himself. So he leases a 727. Okay, I'm not sure if he learned how to fly the 727, but he leased it. And because he was younger, he would disguise himself. He would dye his hair gray to look older because he would go into these banks and try to get loans and things. And they get out of here, kid. So he tried to look older. Heavy smoker. Is eventually caught, though. He's caught and goes to prison. And he gets out of prison. He spends 2 years in prison. And he gets out of prison in, I think, September of 71, okay? Now, he has no money. He's a felon now. He has no prospects. Okay. And the next thing they know, he ends up dead in a hotel room from a overdose of pain pills. Okay. Whether it was a suicide or not, they don't know. But he ends up dead in a hotel in Denver. He's from Denver, by the way. Okay. But he winds up on December 1st of 71, dead in a hotel room in Denver, Colorado. Okay. Now, the family, and I've seen this, like the guy emailed me these documents. I was like, Jesus. The family, about a week after the guy dies, they get a letter in the mail from the Hilton in Portland, downtown Hilton, Portland, saying, this person who has this address listed, I can't say his name, but did not check out of his room on November 24th, 71. Okay, he left everything in there. And we have all of his belongings, and if you will pay the credit card bill, we'll send his belongings back to you. So they did. But so this guy was in Portland the day before the hijacking, leaves his stuff, okay? Then the autopsy, by the way, for when he died showed he had massive internal injuries consistent with almost like a car wreck almost, okay? And he's bleeding internally, things like this. So I'm like, holy shit. You have a guy who knows 727s. He is a master embezzler crook kid, skydiver, okay? And he's in Portland the day of the hijacking. We know he's there, okay? And then he dies a week later of internal injuries in Colorado. It's like, wait a second. Did this guy do the hijacking, lose the money, get terribly injured landing, and just say, screw it, I'm gonna go home and die. I'm done. I've now committed this other crime. I'm on parole already. I'm gonna go back forever. But he was only 24 at the time, and it was like, arg. So, who gives a damn? What are you saying, Max? Who gives a damn about this guy I'm talking about? I mean, you don't have to watch, pal. That's fine. But anyway, but yeah, great suspect. And it looks like Cooper too. Looks a lot like Cooper. He was Greek. Very swarthy, weird lip, turkey neck. Perfect. Just, he was 24 years old. It's like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, younger than Tina by 4 years.
Well, no. Tina's 22 at the time.
Oh, no, yeah, I'm sorry. How old is Flo?
No, Flo's 23, Alice is 24.
23. So same age basically as Flo. And
Yeah,
Flo
and
originally wrote 50.
Yeah, and I'll share with everybody my I was going to use this as my graphic before I wrap it up here. I was going to use this as my graphic for this evening, but I thought it was tacky. I said, well, I don't want to include the women in it because this is tacky, but this is my original thought for my thing there. I thought everyone would like that, but I thought it might be a little bad taste to have the CooperCon with the girls in the back, but I don't know, kind of funny, but I'll share it with you guys. Okay. Anyway, all right. So let's see. Max has a grudge against the.
Yeah, move that popcorn bucket off to his side, Ryan. If you're gonna.
Yeah. Oh, that's terrible. I get the joke. There we go. Where is Lisa Cesare these days? She gave you guys some gray hair. She did. Lisa, I don't know where Lisa went. Lisa's a smart lady. Lisa's interesting. Lisa is a rich lady, by the way. People might not know that. Lisa worked for
Apple,
yeah. She's like a way back Apple. Apple was back in the day, Apple.
I think Lisa had great intentions, and
yeah, she's a little different. Yeah, Lisa's just.
And I believe Nikki keeps in touch with her, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but she she was something about the Braden folks, and like I said, I have Braden blood in me, and that's why I get upset when they're they ostracize me or they get mad at me. I'm like, look, man, I am like 1/4 Ted Braden blood as a Cooperite. So I am of Braden. I love Ted Braden. Okay, I just think the guy was too short to be Cooper, and it sucks. But it is what it is. I'm not gonna lie.
There's a sacrifice you make when you either have a new suspect and you're talking about that new suspect, or you basically say you don't believe someone is Cooper. But of course, you and I've said we don't believe anybody is Cooper, even the people we're talking about.
Yeah.
But there are people that have a lot vested in the way they think differently about things, and that they don't want to hear some of the things that might be about the person not being Cooper. And I get that. It's human nature. And, there's a lot of people put a lot of time, sweat, and effort into looking into people in this case. And you get vested in it emotionally and psychologically and intellectually. And, that's okay. That's being human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, exactly. And it is, it is what it is for sure. Recently I've come to see Cooper as a deeply depressed man. Do you think he might have unalived himself after the heist? I mean, if he lost the money, but honestly though, I mean, you think about Mac. Mac lost the money and was gonna unalive himself. When he knew he lost the money, he started unbuckling his parachute. And then he said, "Where there's life, there's hope. I'll just do the same hijacking next week and ask for $1 million," and was going to do that. So I don't know. I don't think Cooper was afraid of dying. Otherwise he wouldn't have done this.
Right.
Which is why I do think that he was a soldier of some sort at some point.
I think all these guys, whether they were cognitive of it, were taking were potentially ending their lives when they did a hijack. I mean, there were a lot of people that were shot and killed, as Ryan has talked about, with all of the hijackings that went on, the ones that went to Cuba and so on and so forth. But this you had to go into it knowing that there was a probability that you were going to go out alive. And Cooper, whether you believe him or not, told Tina, "I won't be taken alive."
Yes.
So whether he had a gun in his bag or the bomb was real, he at least was saying to her, I'm not going to get taken alive.
Yeah, he was adamant. In fact, as her term, he was adamant that he was not going to be taken alive. So, and I mean, you have to believe a guy like that. And again, he had the confidence of it's almost like, that's why I felt that he is older. I mean, he is a guy in his 40s or whatever, because Cooper's give a damn button. And I can say, as I am fully middle-aged now, your give a damn button does kind of go by the wayside the older you get, And
Look at me. I'm wearing DB Cooper stuff in a flannel shirt.
Yeah,
I mean,
I know,
I've already given up on life.
Yeah. So I just don't think, I don't think so. Somebody asked me earlier too about, dang, and I forget what it was. I'm so sorry, people. There was a question I forgot to answer, but let's see. Didn't McCoy lose the money? No. McCoy is actually the only guy who actually made it home with the money. Now, that was a problem because he kept the money in his home. And so when the FBI shows up.
Stopping off and spending a 20 on, what did he get, a shake or?
A milkshake.
Malt.
Or a malt, yes.
A malt.
He pulled out a 20 and just, McCoy was not
and then had the kid drive him, not, "Hey, take me a half a mile from my house," where even that's stupid. No, drive me right up to my house so you can see me get out of my car and walk into my home.
And no, it wasn't even, Jen, it wasn't even in the attic. It was in a closet. It was, he had $499,000 whatever dollars in a closet. Not the smartest guy. Honestly, even though he's only got home with it, but he wasn't, just McCoy's hijacking is really a comedy of errors, and he talked too much. McCoy and Mac, both those guys are cautionary tales about running your mouth.
And McCoy sounds like he had PTSD. So.
Oh, he did. No, he was. Again, you can't say stuff on YouTube sometimes, but yeah, McCoy apparently, the FBI files on McCoy are very clear that he was very. He had ideations toward unaliving himself.
Yeah.
Okay, he had PTSD badly, and also thought he had a brain tumor, which was in his brain. That was him justifying doing this for his family. As I said, look, I want to leave my family with something because I'm dying of a brain tumor, or I might unalive myself, and I can't help it. I'll do it anyway. So it's just kind of
yeah.
McCoy's a real tragic figure. Or we talk about Richard LaPointe, right? LaPointe at his trial said he could not stop thinking about cutting a man in half with a machine gun. Like it's the ever-present vision in his head of cutting someone in half with a machine gun because he was a door gunner in Vietnam on a Huey. So it just you know, and I have not spoken to Rob Hetty, but clearly he came back a different person. His father mentioned that. His father was a metallurgy professor, interestingly enough, at University of Reno, and said that his son, he was like, the next day after they arrested Hetty, he's like, my son has been different. He came back for 3 weeks ago, and he's just a different kid. And it's sad because, you know, he was a NCAA champion skydiver. You know, he was, you know, an ROTC guy and whatever. It just kind of, I mean, now he got it all together. Obviously, Hetty healed in prison and got an accounting degree. He still, I believe he still has an accounting business, even at his age. So Hetty's around. Worst mistake of McCoy was marrying Karen. Well, Karen's a smart lady. I would say Karen's sister was the problem.
Worst mistake was McCoy not shutting up about that he wanted to do it.
Yeah, and saying he could do it better.
Yeah.
You know, that's
I mean, it was his friend who, the reason why he was caught so quickly was the friend who he had told said, yeah, I think it was him.
Yeah. And, well, no, I disagree here. CD18E is saying he thinks Cooper's closer to 35 than to 50. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know. Again, it's a very hard age. Like, I mean, like, I don't know. How old do you people think I am? Okay. I mean, people keep saying I am a Cooper analog lately. Like, Ryan's a Cooper analog. Look at Ryan. He's a Cooper. Like, you become what you eat, I guess. Like, I am becoming Cooper. I don't know, but so I don't know what people think I look. How old do you think I look? I think that men from 35 to 50 that is a hard age range. Especially when you're wearing sunglasses, because that can cover up a lot of crow's feet and things like that.
What's interesting is how accurate they were with McCoy's age, the witnesses on his hijacking. And then when you take the median age for Cooper of all the witnesses together, and it ends up in that early 40s range, that, you know, you're literally talking for someone to be 35, you know, but
no,
there were a couple people that said in the 30s. So, I mean, there is that, but
I had it somewhere, and I think I did a post on it on the Facebook group a while back. So I was able to get Melvin Fisher, one of the copycats. I was able to get his complete FBI file, and boy, howdy, if we had that many eyewitnesses for the Cooper case, we could dig in, because I mean, there's literally like 40 something eyewitnesses who gave detailed descriptions of this guy, which is really cool because you can look at and we know how old Fisher was, and we know how tall he was, right? So you can look at what they said of how tall he was and how tall Cooper, you know, and they were all really close to it. They were all within 2 inches of his height, and his age. Fisher was 49, and like I believe I added it up. The average age they thought he was like 47, 46, and 48. I mean, they were really close to his age. So I think that, yeah, I think the age, and again, age is also in your presence. Okay. It's in your aura, your countenance, right? Yeah. Tina sat next to this guy for 5 hours or whatever. Right. And I mean, she's going to know if the guy's 30 or 45. I mean, you just kind of tell, because again, if Tina's 22 years old, I don't know how old her dad was. I should probably look that up just to figure out how old her dad was at the time. But these girls, they were baby boomers. Okay, so their dads were of the World War II generation. They were Cooper's age. So they felt that Cooper was more of their dad's age than their age. And to me, that speaks a lot. Because like their dad would have been Cooper's age. I
think Bill with the turkey neck, the fact that, Ryan, you've talked about this, that you like the accuracy of the Bing sketch, but the reasons for the revision where they said he looks too young.
Right, looks too young.
So that was part of the genesis of the changing and then coming up with the Cary Grant sketch later.
Yeah, and he did. He did the girls ever describe his teeth? No, his teeth were never. He kept his mouth shut and was slouching the whole time and
just his lower lip, and then also his curved lip or the wrinkles.
Yeah, he had wrinkled mouth, and yeah, just something about his lip was noticed, and also facial sagging. Okay, we've got Bill Mitchell calling sagging chin, but we also had recently, and this is why the FBI files are still coming out that are useful. We've got Spreckle, one of the passengers who sat 17C, so in front of Cooper and right across the aisle. Spreckle saying that Cooper had looseness of his facial skin. That's not a 35-year-old guy. That's somebody's a little older. Okay.
Yeah, unless you had a younger person that had a significant weight loss in a short period of time. Right. So that is feasible, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, several people put Cooper in his 30s. No, two. Well, I would say two, really. Lebissiniere, who I think was drunk, so I don't trust him. Gregory seems to be a good witness, but again,
sunglasses too. Those guys are looking at a guy wearing sunglasses. So
yeah. Now Gregory did say he saw Cooper once without his sunglasses on, but Gregory only saw Cooper twice. Once when he went to the bathroom, and then once when he was deboarding the plane and looked back, and Flo said, "Don't look at him." And so, which I always found interesting that Flo's. So what do y'all think about the idea of Flo going back to get her purse? People in the chat. I mean, because in my opinion, it doesn't seem crazy because this was a single woman. She's from Arkansas. She was living in Minneapolis in an apartment. No doubt all her money was in the purse. Her car keys were in the purse. Her apartment keys were in the purse. I feel like that she was probably just like, you know what? And by that point, she had interacted with Cooper a little more. And maybe she just wasn't so scared of him anymore. And maybe she just felt that the bomb was fake at that point and wasn't too worried about it.
Yeah, I also think she probably thought no one else could go get it for her, right? Because that would freak him out. So,
and that plane is flying off to parts unknown. Right. So when
are you ever going to turn somebody else on to get it for her? Because he'll be like, "Who the hell are you coming on the plane?"
Right. Yeah, only she could come down the aisle and not freak Cooper out, and because he recognized her and stuff. So now some people who would be a little more dubious of Flo would say that perhaps, I mean, this is 1971, that perhaps she had something in her purse that she shouldn't have had in her purse. And that, because surely wherever the plane landed, they were going to look inside a purse that is, because they checked the passenger's luggage. All the passenger's luggage was opened up. We do know that. So Flo may have been like, oh crap, I got some weed in there. And that would have gotten back. It probably would have got her fired. If, and it is interesting that Flo, and I don't know if I ever talked to her, I'd love to ask her. Flo was the only one who did not work for Northwest for long. So Flo leaves and goes to work for Frontier Airlines in, I think, May of 72. So she's not there much longer. So now, does that have anything to do with Cooper? Maybe not.
She moved to Denver, right?
Yeah, which is where Frontier is. I mean, maybe she just didn't like the weather in Minneapolis and wanted to change the scenery, And
when you and I talked about that Jeffrey Gray book, that means that if she took a month off and then someone was following her after on Northwest flights, it would have had to been before she left to work for Frontier.
Yes, right. So it would have been before then. And maybe that's why she left Northwest. She was spooked by something. Maybe she was spooked by the whole thing and wanted to go work for somebody else where they're not going to find her, So But yeah, we discussed that. That interaction would have had to have happened in Minneapolis,
right?
While she was still working. I don't know. She says Tina spent an hour alone with Cooper, but couldn't give a better sketch. I mean, look, I know from doing prosecutor conventions and things that the cops will say, if you're being robbed, the worst thing you can do is look at the guy who's robbing you. Just put your head down. Don't look at him. Just hand him your wallet. Don't look away from him. Just make sure. And Tina said that. Tina said, I didn't look at the guy. I tried not to. So, I mean.
Yeah, and we don't know if Cooper would have said to them, even if he did it in the most smooth way, said, "Hey, don't tell anybody what I look like," or or else type of a thing. We just have no idea.
Yeah, and I mean, Tina just seems very generous to Cooper, and it really does speak to the fact that he could have treated her worse than he did, and he didn't.
She did a great job as Bill in his yellow sweater when he's crying, talking about her says, and Cooper did a great job of putting her at ease and having her smoke a cigarette with him and trying to make it as non-friction pointy as possible. Right. Obviously he got impatient. He was pissed off when the parachutes weren't coming on time and that the refueling truck stuff was going on. But other than that, he seemed like he had it together.
Yeah, I mean, he was an okay guy. Let's see.
I don't know about that, if he was an okay guy, but
well, I'm just saying he was decent enough.
Yeah, right.
Max says McCoy was the most decorated soldier so far out of Cooper and the 5 copycats that jumped, right? Yeah, for sure. I mean, he had a Distinguished Flying Cross, which is below the Medal of Honor. So yeah, a Distinguished Service Cross. Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that didn't get medal for stuff like Ted Braden. If you're doing, or if Skip was doing covert stuff or whoever. So
yeah, those guys don't get the medals really, but no, I would say McCoy was very decorated for sure. Lisney, Gregory, and Lebesnier all put Cooper in his 30s. And of the 16 copycat hijackers, only 3 were over 30. It's a young man's game. Possibly. I mean, look,
how many of them got away with it is the question.
Yeah, exactly. So they put Cooper in his 30s, but
a lot of the young men didn't get away with it. One guy did.
That's true. The young men didn't get away with it. They were.
One guy who was calm and cool and collected got off the airplane.
Ralph said Cooper had a bad mouth and wasn't nice. Why did Ralph keep saying he was a foul-mouthed crook? Well, he was a crook, so he's not lying. When Ralph says he was a sleazy crook, not wrong. He was an airplane hijacker. But I've said this before. Ralph was mistaking Cooper for somebody he wrote about in his book. The whole long thing. Don't want to get into it too long. What did he have on his fingertips? Must have been glue. Probably glue. We know that that's a thing they did. I have asked John Detler about that. I said, is that a thing that criminals did back then? He said, absolutely. So, look, Cooper absolutely. I have to save some things for my stupid ass book, but it's in my book. I have to, don't. But I feel like I have really good evidence that Cooper absolutely had glue on his fingertips. I have some serious evidence on that.
I'm a decade older than Ryan, and I remember being a kid playing with rubber cement, and we'd put crazy glue. And the one thing that I cracked up is it could have been intentional, but when they said Cooper spilled his drink, is that if you have the glue on your fingertips, it actually becomes very slippery. So, he could have spilled the drink to cause a diversion or to try to get Florence's attention, but it could have been he just squeezed it with a little bit of pressure. And if he had the glue on his fingertips, that cup would have squirted right out of his hand.
That's a very good observation. 18. I'm 43, by the way. So 18.
So I'm a lot older than even that.
Oh, you're 15. You're a decade and a half older than me then.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay. Yeah. Flo says a lot. Flo says a lot of things. Yeah. Flo is all over the place. Honestly, Flo says that she poured Cooper a cup of coffee, which is just, I don't know when she would have done that. I don't believe that at all.
I think as time went on, some people unintentionally, like the whole thing with the matchbooks, and that gets confusing, so.
Or even Casi. I honestly wonder if Casi started believing his bullcrap at some point.
Yeah, we talked about human nature before, and even Bill Radicek or Michael Cooper, or you start to, people start to build a little bit of folklore into their stories. Fortunately, we've got Bill Mitchell, who's just such a salt of the earth guy that he just doesn't have that type of persona. And so,
he'll tell you flat out. I don't remember. I don't know.
And the one thing he's told me with Skip or Ryan with the new guy or Nikki with Milton that, yeah, maybe it could be your guy or whatever. But I think Bill is also like, do you remember your third grade teacher? And what they look like and what they would be
even
like.
better than that. He says, do you remember your fifth grade? Do you remember a substitute teacher you had in fifth grade
Right.
one time?
Right.
Like, because that's really what it is. It's that, and it really does make you wonder. Matt Quick is asking, any luck tracking down Bill Mitchell's side profile sketch? No, that is the new freaking Ark of the Covenant. I mean, that's where the hell is that thing? Like, because
I'll never forget when Bill just brings that folder of stuff and it's the letter to his mom, and you and I were just like little kids in a candy store. We're like, what do you, where has this been hiding? And Bill just had it in a file.
And I believe me, it is scanned, and that is in my book in its entirety.
Yeah.
For those who don't know what we're talking about, we could not believe it last year. Bill brought a folder of his Cooper. It's like, it was funny. The folder was even like, I think it's like his kids must, like, I swear to God, I think the folder.
Yeah, because it had newspaper clippings too. And
it had a bunch of stuff, but I think like, it's like somebody wrote, like his mom or something, wrote like Bill's hijacking experience or something like this, right? You can tell his mom had written like Bill's hijacking or Billy's hijacking. I think it was even Billy's hijacking experience. I think that's how I know if his mother was like Billy's hijacking experience, Billy. But anyway, so she wrote a letter to Northwest Airlines after the hijacking saying, I want to thank you guys for taking care of my son. He was on flight 305, yada, 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 yada. And Northwest just sent a boilerplate letter back. A form letter saying, we are so glad your son enjoyed his flight aboard flight 305. It's like, we're glad we could take care of you, and then he enjoyed his flight. We look forward to serving you, But eventually, though, it seems like a couple of days later, somebody's like, oh my God, that's, somebody came across it and was like, oh shit, that's, because there is a letter saying, we are so proud of our staff for handling this situation well. And it's more of a personal letter, but it's funny. There's a form letter saying, dear Mrs. Mitchell, we're so glad your son enjoyed his flight aboard flight 305. We're glad your son enjoyed his experience aboard flight 305. It's like, oops. So there's.
Hey, Thompson, did you write that letter? Mr. Nyrop would like to see you in his office right now.
You're fired. Like, right. That's funny. All right, folks. Well, listen. So we're coming up on 3 hours as we do. Now that is a DB Cooper cutting board. Where in the hell did you get that?
So I spoke last year at Seeking Treasure Con in Las Vegas because for people that don't know, Nikki Broughton and I are also part of treasure hunting communities. And there was a guy who came and made a bunch of stuff. Does stuff with wood. And he knew I was speaking about DB Cooper. And so he put a bunch of stuff together. And this was a charity item. I got it. I bought it. And I said, you know what? For the people that buy the weekend pass at CooperCon for $75, we're going to enter everybody's name into a little hat, and we'll do a drawing on Sunday morning and give this beautiful board so you can have Cooper charcuterie.
I did not know you were auctioning. I didn't know you were going to do a raffle for that. Awesome.
Giveaway, not a raffle.
Giveaway. Yeah.
Giveaway. We're just going to pick a name out of a hat. Don't need to buy a ticket to win the cutting board.
Absolutely. Yes. And dbcooperconference.com, folks, please go there. And listen, obviously we have a hotel there. If you go to hospitality, there's a hotel bar where we're all going to hang out at most of the time, I'm guessing. There's a discount.
So Friday night, Victor 23. Saturday night, we're just going to go the 8 blocks back to the Hilton Hotel, and they have a wonderful place called Gray's. There are other bars. There's an Irish pub right around there because the movie's going to start at 7:15. And then on Sunday night, for people that are local or may not be flying until the next day, we're going to go back to Victor 23 on Sunday night to celebrate after the conference is over.
Yes. So yeah, it'll be a great time. And seriously, folks, I mean, come meet us, come hang out with Mark Meltzer, come see Bruce Smith, come see Larry Carr, come meet.
I haven't met Larry in person yet. I mean, I've had how many exchanges with Larry over the last couple of years, and haven't met Larry yet. So, and
I mean, seriously, people, like, come get a photo and talk to Martin McNally. Like, I mean, this is for anybody, all of you watching this care about DB Cooper. This man is a DB Cooper. Like, he is literally a DB Cooper. There is no difference in him and DB Cooper, essentially. I mean, Cooper thought of the idea, but this guy did the same crime as Cooper. Okay. So this is as close as we can get to DB Cooper.
And his flight attendant is going to be there.
And his Tina will be there.
Right.
I mean, like, how crazy is that? So come hang out with us. And
we're gonna have a movie premiere. I mean, how often do you have to watch the Oscars and sit and watch all these people do that or do movie premieres? We're gonna have the red carpet out and taking photos before the movie starts and having a great time on Saturday night.
Yes, he is Mac is not a psycho felon. Mac is a genius felon, actually. He's a very, very smart guy.
You know, I think because not everybody gets to hear everything I say or Ryan says, there's a full paragraph in my book that when I read it, Bill Mitchell actually got emotional because I talked about that D.B. Cooper was a criminal. You know, he jeopardized the lives of people. There were copycats, you know, that, you know, terrorized other people that ended up dead themselves, like Richard McCoy. And we have a lot of fun with this case, trying to figure out who D.B. Cooper was. And certainly there is some fanboying that I self-admit that we all do, because there is the James Bond cool, you know, guy in a suit with sunglasses who's just going to jump out of the back of a plane with a bunch of money and never get caught. But, you know, Mac served most of his adult life in prison for this.
38 years.
38 years. So I know when he first came to the conference 2 years ago, there were some people that didn't like that because they considered him, you know, a criminal. And but at the same time, someone who's committed a crime where, again, nobody was injured or killed except himself, really. And he served 38 years in prison, and he's there to talk about his experience, I think is a cool thing. But I get it if people don't think it is. That's fine too.
Right. And again, Mac is very apologetic about it. I mean, Mac knows his sins for sure.
Yeah, he reminds me of Red in Shawshank, when Red finally is so giving up on his parole hearings, and he finally just says, "I wish I could grab that young kid and shake him and tell him not to do it."
Yeah,
and
Mac says that all the time. Mac's like, just a wasted life. Mac just
wasted my life.
And it was, because I mean, Mac was a smart guy. Mac could have done great things, you know.
Yeah, to have F. Lee Bailey talk about you as the smartest prison attorney because Mac represented himself and won. Overturned two of his convictions. Yeah. Himself. Right. It's an incredible story. I can't wait to see the movie.
Yep. All right, folks. Well, that's all we've got. So please give this video a like. It helps a lot. And Packer, his book, Where Was Skip?
Right.
Is you can go to Amazon, type in Where Was Skip, and you will see his book about Skip Hall. Very good Cooper suspect. And we're going to learn more about Skip next month. And hopefully I can introduce a new suspect to everybody next month as well. And I'll be seeing you there. So like, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. Thank you, Retro Ref. Bye, folks. Bye, Packer.
Bye.
See ya.